Hey, J-Bone Nation! Shaming of Jay. He's not a dopey dumb bitch. He gets laid. The court jester, the court DJ. It's time to dive into the case. To the case.
What's up, everybody?
What's up? Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. We're back, Jay. Another day.
We are. And Bob, listen to this.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Yeah.
I did a little searching. I got some new sound effects.
Made my whole day, dude. Just made my whole day right there. I like cheers and welcome back, Cotter. In terms of theme songs, like I don't know if there's any better than those two.
Well,
I mean, Night Court's great, but like you made it better. Like it wasn't like I didn't think it was particularly great when Night Court was on, but then when you added your lyrics, it then became a must hear.
Were you a when that was out? Were you an attorney at that time? Or
no. God, how old do you think I am, man?
I don't remember when it came out, dude. I just remember
No, I was. I think high school,
okay.
High school, because that was what early. I might have been out of high school. Maybe that was that early 90s or was that an 80s sitcom? I can't even remember.
Not me. That's what I'm saying. It's all blur. But good morning, everyone. Want to thank you for a whole week of trial here, and we appreciate you guys being here. We appreciate mods for all they do. Thank you guys so much.
We thank you. I know it was a little bit of a slow trial in the beginning. If you guys weren't with us yesterday, it picked up steam big time. We got Melanie Gibb currently on the stand. In the midst of cross-examination by everyone's favorite defense attorney, John Pryor, and I expect more fireworks today, Jay. I think it'll be much more interesting than cops and accountants. That's for sure. No offense to accountants or cops.
Speaking of Pryor, I got a sound effect for him, and you're gonna like this. And I'm gonna play it. And I'll tell you the story. But here you go. Here's a Pryor sound effect I got.
Your world frightens and confuses me.
Now, this is how you know we're old, because I typically go to a website called like My Instant, and it has like a lot of sound effects. And usually I could just go on there and search for stuff. But like I had to go on YouTube and like screen record like a clip because no one knows on my. It's more like current stuff. No one had, that caveman lawyer on there.
Oh, my God. Yeah, dude. Like, you don't have to tell me. Like, my frame of reference is always like the 80s, man. So, which is like at this point, ancient history. Quite literally, ancient history. So, yeah, I feel that pain, Jay. It's like every day it's a stark reminder of just exactly how old I am. One day after another of stark reminders of my advanced age. You know what, though, man? I'm good with it. Like, I'm good with it. I feel good. I'm healthy. I'm energetic. So it's like, it's nothing but a number, right?
Absolutely. And I also got one. You're going to love. This is another one that a screen. I had to record. This one's for the potato. You're gonna love this one.
He'll crying himself to sleep tonight on his huge pillow.
Oh yeah, yeah. I posted that meme yesterday. That exact meme.
Nice. And I
Or
got
maybe a few days ago, whenever I did the Chad Clips post.
and talking about an old reference here. So here's one. I had this on my other one. I finally found it. We got this one.
Good morning, Vietnam!
Robin Williams, what a legend.
The best. Robin
What an
Williams.
absolute legend.
Man. And he was so versatile, man. Like, you know, obviously his comedy stuff was great, but his like dramatic stuff. I mean, Good Will Hunting is a top 5 movie.
Did he win an Oscar for that? If he should have, if he did, I
can't remember.
Did he win an Oscar? I don't even know.
I think he won an Oscar. I don't know if it was for. He was nominated many times as well. He should have been. That's a good question. I don't know if he did win. Yeah, but that role, dude, Good Will Hunting. Like, we should actually watch Good Will Hunting moving into the Karen Reed trial because it's such a Boston-centric movie, you know, man. And it's like, and all the shit that people give, like Ben Affleck, and Matt Damon wrote that script. In that movie, the scene, and I'm asking, going into Karen Reed, I want the Harvard bar scene. I want the clip from when they walk in, when Ben Affleck, or it's either Ben or Casey Affleck, he's like, "This is a fucking Harvard bar? I thought there would be like equations on the wall and shit." When they when he meets, dude, it's like, get some clips from Good Will Hunting. I'm
about them apples. All right,
yes,
I'll look. Those might be on there.
Dude, you like apples? How you like them apples? How many times will we play that during the Karen Reed trial?
Yeah, that's a good, like, after a good cross or after a good, you know. By the way, I see Publicly Buzzed is here, and I tweeted it out, and Bob made a good point. These our boys have been under 10K for too long. We're starting a petition. If you're not subscribed to Publicly Buzzed, please do now. They're great. They put in the work, and they're working all day, and then they come on and put on the work.
Yeah, dude, and they're just like wonderful human beings.
Absolutely.
And they put out great content. I mean, I hope Dan hears this because Steve does the heavy lifting, and Dan just swoops in for all the glory. We love them. They're absolutely part of our family. If you guys have not subbed to that, I've been looking at them under 10K for like, I don't know how long, but it, like, last night it finally exploded, Jay. I just had to bring it out. So do yourselves a favor more than anything else. Sub to Publicly Buzzed. Jay and I are hanging with those dudes all the time. Like, I was supposed to be doing Friday. I got
to put on our little thing here.
Pumpkinhead looking like same outfit as yesterday, maybe. Kind of
very
like
similar.
Blue tie.
Okay.
Sheila Duffy.
Okay, we're on the record again on KCR 222116.
Thank you, Sheila.
What did you say? What did Sheila do?
Sheila said that Robin Williams won Best Supporting Actor for Good Will Hunting.
Nice. Thank you.
Yes.
2-3 State of Idaho versus
Thanks,
Chad Guy
Elizabeth. I'll do
Daybell.
that
We're
now.
continuing with evidence this morning. The case in chief still presented by the state. The court notes that we do have all 18 jurors have returned and each have signed their juror affirmations this morning. So if we're ready to continue with evidence, it's cross-examination of Ms. Gibb this morning, who has returned on the witness stand. Is the state ready to proceed and have the jurors brought in?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
From the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, we'll continue with that. And as I mentioned to counsel, we'll discuss as the day moves along what time we might conclude for the day, but we'll see how things are going in terms of length of this witness and the next. So if we'll go ahead and have the jurors brought in at this time, please, Mr. Bailiff.
Wouldn't mind dipping out a little early, Jay.
What's that? Is that what he said?
That's the vibe I got. He didn't come out and say it, but, you know, depending on how long Gibb goes and the next witness, he's like, I wouldn't be surprised if he dipped out a little early on a Friday.
I'm still thinking about how he throttled that attorney, man. Woof. That was.
You will bring the jury.
I got Newman, folks. Got him there.
Bring the jury. So let us know in the chat. Did any of you guys come and watch our Reed primer? What did you guys think? We had to do some like very last second pivots on some of our graphics just because despite the incredible amount of hard work that both Mandy and Dizzy did, unfortunately, we could not blow the graphics up or zoom in on them without them pixelating to the extent where they were almost unusable. So, as Jay acknowledged, we are so thankful that they did all that work for us. We were able to use some of their graphics, but we had to do a last-second pivot. So we hope that if you guys joined us last night, that you thought it was insightful.
Yeah, and I'm a little limited on this program as to my other program. I can zoom in. It's harder on this one, so like they did a lot of work. But we'll probably post out like on our socials, like some of the graphics they did, just so you guys can like zoom in. But on this program, it's difficult to translate for you guys to see.
Four eyes, please.
So, but we appreciate it from that
If
was
you
there.
couldn't watch last night, replay crew, like going into
Absolutely.
that trial, it'll really give you a good primer as to what's what and who's who. All right, Jay, I'm gonna go make my coffee. I'll be back.
Right.
Love you guys. Bye.
Oh, Dizzy said they're posting the servers. Thank you, Dizzy. Make sure you're on Seeking Justice, folks. Make sure you're on the Seeking Justice Discord.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bailiff. Please be seated.
You can get all their documents and graphics. I mean, they just do a great job. All our mods do. And thank you. By the way, again, I'm going to be on Publicly Buzz tonight, starting on YouTube, and then going to Kick.
All right. Good morning, everyone. We are on the record on case CR
Join us.
22-21-1623, State of Idaho versus Chad Guy Daybell. We're continuing with evidence in the case. Ms. Gibb is on the stand, having been previously sworn yesterday. This is continuing cross-examination. The court notes the presence of all 18 jurors properly seated as well. And the court will also indicate that each of the jurors has completed their juror affirmation.
Oh yeah, folks, and Chris Duet is joining us, and he's the best. So it's just going to be a good show tonight.
For the morning, so thank you all for following the court's continuing admonition and instruction in that regard. With that, if we're ready to continue with cross, you can go ahead and take the podium, Mr. Pryor, and we'll continue.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Before you begin your cross, Mr. Pryor, I'll just inquire of the witness. First, I'll remind you, you are still under oath, Ms. Gibb, and I'll ask, did you review anything about the case or your testimony or discuss your testimony with anyone else since last night when we concluded? Okay. She indicated no. So with that, Mr. Pryor, if you'd like to continue with cross, you can do that now.
Buckle up, buttercups.
Ms. Gibb, I want to go over just a couple of preliminary matters if we could first to start there, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
The first thing is
That's just another way he just pisses me off. Like, I'm going to start off with, if that's okay with you. What? Like, you say, no, you can't ask me these questions?
you never did provide a hair sample to any law enforcement agency in this case. Is that right?
Ooh.
Correct.
Oh shit!
You never
Wow.
turned over your phone or was requested to turn over your phone to any law enforcement agency. Is that correct?
Correct.
You were never requested or did turn over any email or any email accounts or social media accounts to law enforcement at their request. Is that correct?
Correct.
You did, however, in 2021, provide a DNA sample to a Rexburg or a Fremont County officer a couple of years after this alleged incident. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about an organization that I think you're affiliated with called Seven Gatherers. Are you familiar with the term Seven Gatherers?
I'm not.
You're not. Okay.
Did he just like scoff?
No, that was me.
Oh,
Sorry.
I was like, whoa. Now that would have been some condescending bullshit. Really? Really? Wow.
Initially, there was some discussion about Chad and Lori. Obviously, we're getting very close during the early parts of January and February of 2019. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And at any time, did they talk about having a plan to spend their lives together?
At some point they did.
Do you recall when that was?
I would say they kind of talked about it in the beginning of the relationship about being part of the
Thank
the
you,
head
Mar.
of the 144,000. I would say within a month or two. I'm not sure exactly the day.
Well, I appreciate the religious references, but I was talking more on a personal note that they were planning if
See, now that was some
when
condescending
Tammy
bullshit
passed away
right
that they
there.
were going to spend their lives together. Did you ever overhear that kind of a discussion?
Um, I guess kind of. Yeah.
And on that note, we previously touched on the fact that Chad and a number of his speaking engagements prior to even knowing Lori Vallow spoke about his, and I want to use the right word, his premonitions, I guess, about Tammy not having a long life. Recall that?
Yes.
And you were present for at least a couple of those, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So it was also common knowledge that Chad had openly discussed the fact that he felt his wife was not going to live long, well before he ever met Lori Vallow, right?
Right.
Okay. And in fact, you touched on that when you had one of your text message conversations with Prosecutor Wood. You had mentioned that, let me,
Wow.
do you recall having that discussion?
It's possible, but I don't recall it.
Okay.
He's going to refresh your recollection with
Is
the
it
text
possible that you
messages.
told him that
Oh boy.
Chad made it known to a lot of his close friends that he knew that Tammy wasn't going to live long?
Yes.
Okay. And we don't need to go into that.
Okay.
Okay.
There we go. He didn't have to do it. Jay,
Now,
what are
at
your
no
likes looking
time
at? I got 134 watching and only
did
61 likes.
Chad
Jay.
Daybell ever tell you that
I
he
got
intended to do harm
146
to
watching,
Tammy Daybell,
78
did he?
likes. Smashy
Correct.
that likey, folks.
And in fact,
Please.
at
Oh,
no
wow.
time did Chad Daybell ever tell you that he intended to do harm to JJ Vallow or Tylee Ryan.
Correct.
Okay. So this plan that they had to spend their lives together would only have occurred if either Chad divorced Tammy Daybell, or that if the premonition was accurate and Tammy had passed away, that they would be able to spend their lives together, right?
Yes.
Okay. I want to go back to the discussion in late November when you claim that you got a call from Chad about not wanting to talk to the police, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, to put a little foundation in this, on the weekend of the 19th through the 23rd, you were at Lori Vallow's townhome that night, right?
Are you talking about November?
September of
Oh.
19th through the 23rd, you were at,
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
just putting a little foundation in place. You were at there, and then you were, part of that was to go to a seminar. There were a number of other things as well, right?
Correct.
Okay. So in your eyes, that was the last time that you saw JJ Vallow alive, right?
Correct.
Okay. And did you later come to learn that the prosecutors in the state's allegations are that JJ was murdered at or around the time that you folks were there for that podcast?
I wasn't aware of that.
You've never become aware of that?
I wasn't aware that they were murdered. I knew that the word was missing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And subsequently, you've learned that the allegation is that there's an alleged murder that took place at or around the weekend of the 19th through the 23rd. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Shelly Beans.
Thank you.
Now, your testimony is that
And thank you, Angela.
Chad
Thank
Daybell
you,
called
guys.
you and said,
We appreciate
don't
it.
talk to the police.
We do appreciate
Is
it.
that what it was on the 19th? And do you remember the date of that?
I remember it was 2 or 3 days before Thanksgiving. So it's in November, whenever Thanksgiving was.
And would the 25th of November ring a bell, possibly?
It's possible.
Okay.
Just real quick, I want to just comment on this for folks who may have not seen our prior shows. Rachie LS, does anyone know how the jurors are reacting to this? We have boots on the ground who said they are not reacting kindly to Pryor. At least the last couple of days, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking it got better, but they were making faces, right, Bob? Like they couldn't even hide their
like both of our boots on the ground felt that Pryor was making points, but it was being, that the points were lost on the jury because they can't stand him. So whatever headway he might be making, there's a lot of eye rolling, and they don't like his personality apparently. So because this is a pretty effective cross. This is a pretty effective cross-examination. I mean, that statement as to Tammy that he was telling friends before Lori was even a thought in his head that, that Tammy was not going to live a long life really counteracts that whole thing of, because the state really, really weighs heavily on that aspect that, he kept saying that Tammy was going to live a short life, and oh, look, wow, she died. So, I mean, he's effective, but again, at the end of the day, if a jury can't stand a lawyer, and if in their minds it's close, like if they're like, oh, I don't know which way to go, like just human nature is you're going to side with the person that you like more. Like if it's not just crystal clear from the facts and the evidence, it will like the likability of the attorney comes into play. It shouldn't, but it does.
And Bob, you always say like the people in the chat are going to be just like the jury. And I see this comment here. I see it from everyone, like in both chats all the time. The way he says, okay, right, is so condescending. So I'm sure the jury is thinking that too.
Right. And it was like, I try to explain that, like, it's kind of a natural flow in cross-examinations. Like anytime like Alice and I are crossing, like I always end with like correct. And I try to switch it up a little bit because you don't want to sound robotic, but when I ask a question because remember, it's not an open-ended question. That is the key to cross-examination.
Well, yeah, but they're saying when the person answers and then he doesn't like the answer, he goes, oh, okay. Like he goes, okay. Like that I think is what is like upsetting people. Like he's like,
I think that he's just trying to make it sound more conversational as opposed to an interrogation. And it's not coming off that way.
It's not hitting.
It's not hitting.
Now, prior to November 23rd, did you have any phone conversations with Lori Vallow giving you a warning that Chad was going to call you?
No.
Okay. But when Chad spoke with you at that time,
Blair Teague, happy birthday to you.
He did tell you that Lori was going to get a hold of you afterwards, right?
Happy birthday.
It goes so fast. I know.
Well, Miss Gibb,
bittersweet birthdays with your kids.
Isn't it true that on November 25th of 2019, Chad Daybell contacted you and specifically asked you, where is JJ Vallow?
And no.
Okay. And yet, during that conversation, he told you that Lori was going to be contacting you, right?
That's right.
And then after that, did Lori contact you?
She did.
And what was the discussion, Miss Gibb?
She told me that the police had come asking for JJ and that she had told them that I had JJ and that I needed to go to a movie called Frozen, take some pictures.
Okay.
Back. Yeah.
So your denial of the fact that Chad called you, you're denying the fact that Chad Daybell called you on the 25th, seeking out information as to where JJ Vallow is. You're denying that, right?
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. But yet Lori Vallow calls you back after Chad Daybell and says, I need you to cover for me and tell the police that you have JJ Vallow, correct?
Correct.
Hey, but Mr. Daybell also during that conversation said, you're going to hear from Lori.
Correct.
Did Lori ever tell you, I told Chad that JJ was with you and go along with this story?
I don't believe so.
Okay, but you don't know for sure, do you?
I can't remember. I can't recall all the words I said to her.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, fair enough.
There it is.
And then was it that day or was it the next day that the police officers called you?
It was the same day. day.
Okay. And at that point, you told them that you had JJ Vallow, didn't you?
Not initially, but by the end of the day, yes.
Okay. You basically told them during that day that you had possession of JJ Vallow. Is that right?
I said I had him and then I didn't have him.
Well, no,
That's
we're
the
going to go
words I
one at a
used.
time, ma'am.
Okay.
At the first opportunity to have discussion with the police and discuss where JJ Vallow was, you told them you had JJ Vallow.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm having some difficulty with the fact that Chad's trying to cover something up, and yet after a phone call from Lori discussing to tell them that you had JJ, you suddenly go along and say, yes, I had JJ Vallow.
Or objection. This is a narrative. I'd ask to strike.
Sustain.
All right. And then at some point subsequent to that point, you decided to
Right.
tell the police, well, I lied about this because I was having an emotional issue with how to deal with this, correct?
Rest in
Yes.
peace.
Okay. And
Oh,
how
he passed
long did
away? I
it
didn't
take
know
you
that.
for you to have that emotional
Passed away, yeah.
reflection to go back to the police and tell them, well, I'm not going along with this lie that Lori and I came up with?
A few weeks.
Objection, Your Honor, misstates the evidence.
Well, it's already been answered by the witness. It's late, overruled.
Okay. A couple of weeks it took you to decide that I better tell the police the truth, right?
Right.
Okay. And then at some point you said that you decided to go and
Good, Pam. Not as squeaky. Still a little squeaky. It's a gamer chair.
Oh, you got one?
excuse me.
I had one, but it was
Oh,
like I tried to tighten it up because it still squeaks a little bit. Like I don't.
You
I don't
decided
get
to
why
go to the
it's squeaky.
police to let them know what really happened. And that was the 2 weeks later, right?
However many times it was, how many weeks, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, John Pryor is
And then
definitely
at
not
some
related
point
to Richard
yesterday, you
Pryor.
testified that without talking to any law enforcement, you then took it upon yourself to record the conversation between you and Lori, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now,
Everyone is
Ms. Gibb,
WD-40. 4 in a row.
I actually, you think,
And that
you think
occurred
would work? Because
on
it's
about
brand
the
new.
8th of
You use it on brand new shit.
December
Yeah, you could use it on
of
that.
2019. Does that sound correct?
If you're referring to the recording, yes.
Recording, yes. Does that sound correct?
Yes.
Hey, Bo.
Okay. Okay. Do you recall
I did.
having a
Feel real greasy.
call to Ray Hermosillo?
Yes.
Right. And well, your testimony previously yesterday was that you didn't talk to anybody from the police department before you made that call, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, misstates the evidence.
Overruled.
You testified that you did not call or talk to anybody with law enforcement prior to recording that call to Lori Vallow. Is that correct?
Your Honor, again, I'm going to object. This misstates her testimony.
I'll sustain that objection.
Okay. Did you have any contact with law enforcement prior to making that recorded call to Chad and Lori?
I wasn't aware of the dates, so I'm not sure exactly when those dates were.
Oh, so are you saying you did talk to law enforcement?
I did.
Oh, prior to it, right?
I'm not sure of the dates.
Morning,
Okay.
Legal Mama.
Well, would it refresh your recollection that there were 2 calls to the Rexburg police with Ray Hermosillo on the 6th of December and the 7th of December? Does that spark your memory a little bit?
No, I don't recall the dates.
Okay.
It's just your memory, not.
Just gonna pause this real quick. Jen, first of all, good morning, Jen. She says, good morning, Jay, Bob, and Mods. Listening in the car with Huff Daddy on the way to pick up our son from college. I always think it's so cool when people like throw us on the radio and just like listen.
Awesome.
It's like, well, like a radio, like that's so cool.
I love
thank
it.
you.
It's
So cool.
amazing. It's like because you don't do podcasts, so it's like I know people like when they're road tripping, they listen,
Right.
and it's like such a cool feeling because it's like literally like listening to like kind of like old timey talk radio. So yeah, I love that too.
Yeah, dude.
Thank
I mean,
you.
I talk about it all the time. I grew up on Howard Stern from like 16 till, and like just everyone, like that was like my routine. Like I just love, like it didn't matter what he was talking about.
Yep.
Like I mean, I still listen, but like that's just so cool. Like that people are doing that with us.
Mine.
I know, it's amazing.
And you don't have any recollection of talking to the police beforehand then, right?
Beforehand, what?
Before you recorded the call to Chad?
I could have, or after, before. I didn't recall the timing.
Well, isn't it true you testified yesterday that you didn't talk to the police when it was inquired?
Objection, Your Honor. That misstates the testimony.
Sustained.
Now, does the judge recall whether
So
that's
you did talk to
in
the police on
testimony?
the 6th and 7th with Ray Hermosillo by phone before you made that phone recording to Chad and Lori.
Oh yeah, just real quick, if you missed that, yesterday, Melanie Gibb gets off the stand, and Pryor tries to have a process server like in the hallway, and then they had to have like a meeting about it afterwards. So yes, that is correct.
You're
I
right.
think
Objection,
that,
Your Honor. Asked and
like,
answered.
and apparently he's been trying to serve her forever. Like,
Dodging.
she's been dodging hard. She's like, you're not going to get me, John Pryor.
But you can't
You ain't
dodge
getting
when they know you're going to be at court. Like that's what I used to tell people. Like you can't dodge when they know you're going to be there. Like they know
Exactly.
time and place you're going to be there.
She's already said she doesn't recall the dates.
I'll overrule that if she has any additional answer.
Ma'am?
You want to repeat the question, Mr. Pryor?
There was contact with law enforcement before you made that recording, right?
There was contact. I don't recall the time.
Okay.
Angela,
And you don't even
that is
recall the date,
so
right?
awesome.
No.
Okay.
Thanks for posting
All right.
a comment. That makes me feel warm and fuzzy.
Now, during that phone call, I touched on this yesterday a little bit. And Lori's comments on the phone call were, I had to move her somewhere else. You recall that?
Sounds familiar. Yes.
I will do whatever the Lord needs me to do.
Right.
I love you so much. I know, and you said, I know you do, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, I noticed during the phone call that the majority of the conversation was between you and Lori. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And that the only time Chad got on the phone call is when he was talking about, you know, his premonition about Tammy, and that he feels that someone's trying to jump on him as a result of this issue between you and Lori. Would that be fair?
Objection, Your Honor. The call speaks for itself, and that misstates what was in the call.
Love that
Sustained.
comment.
But you would agree with me that Chad was really not a primary or significant portion of that call, correct?
Bob, I'm going to hit you with something. They just said the call speaks for itself. Res ipsa liquitor. Am I right, Bob? Res ipsa liquitor.
Yeah, race,
Yes.
race
thing-
ipsa loquitur. The thing speaks
loquitur.
for it.
The thing
yeah,
speaks
the
for-
thing speaks for itself.
Look at me
Great,
remembering
great
my
Latin phrase.
my
love
training from Geico.
It's amazing.
Now, one of the things I took note of during the phone call was that Lori made the comment, you more than anyone else knows the truth when she was talking to you. Do you
Yeah.
recall that?
Yes.
Isn't it true, ma'am, that that was a way for her to hide the fact that, Miss Gibb, you and Lori Vallow know the truth about what happened to JJ Vallow on the 23rd of September, correct?
No.
Okay, how about the 22nd of September, ma'am?
No.
Okay. Isn't it true that Lori was being very vague on that phone call because Chad was there and she didn't want Chad to know that you were going to talk about the murder of JJ Vallow?
Whoa.
Whoa.
I have no idea what her agenda was.
Okay.
Wow.
Whoa.
I mean, if this jury knows nothing about these
Right.
cases, man, I'm just telling you, if they don't know, he's defending the case. Hate him or not, he is defending the case. He's doing his job.
Yeah, I can't argue with you. I completely agree. I hate him, but he's still.
Yeah, I mean, the dude's coming. For a guy that was trying to bail really hard, he came prepared. It's like, look at Archibald compared to him. It's
There's
like
been some
night and
reference
day.
to names, people using different names. Chad, Lori, yourself. And the name James and Elena came up, right?
Yes.
You're familiar with that.
Yes.
Are you also familiar with the fact that that was a novel that Chad was writing about his relationship with Lori Vallow?
Yes.
Okay. So that all of that discussion about James and Elena was Chad using one of his personal experiences, maybe not a proper experience, but an experience about his relationship with Lori, and he assigned names to those two folks, correct?
I wouldn't know his agenda.
Hey, Jay,
Okay.
pause it for 1 second. I don't want
Now-
to miss this. I just like to address some of these comments as they come in. Throw up Claire Terry's comment from 10:07. It's a really good comment. And it's the one I know that Melanie is a good witness for prosecution. So that's what we were talking about. Claire, I don't know if you were here yesterday. She is a very important witness, but she was so intertwined in like all this shit that was going on with this weird little cult that they had. And she was really Lori's ride or die. Like she was Lori's number one ride or die. So like coming into that's why we were talking about yesterday. Like I still do not know to this day whether or not she was given use immunity in Lori's trial. And I don't know if she was given use immunity now, because when he's asking her questions, like he's asking her right now, that are unequivocally intimating that she had knowledge that JJ was dead and that she was actively trying to keep Chad in the dark. I mean, like that kind of stuff, like it's very effective in terms of like, again, if this jury does not know the backstories of Lori, of Chad, of like what happened with the kids, if they're sitting there and this is all brand new to them, you've got to try, because like we look at it through the lens of we know all the background on this, you know what I'm saying? And it's like that's why like the people in the chat hate Pryor so much. It's way easier to hate the lawyer that you think might be doing a decent job, because it starts to frighten you a little bit that, oh my God, you know, is this guy doing enough to where this blockhead could walk? I adamant about this. He's not going to walk on it, but he's making big points here. He's winning this witness, in my opinion.
My mom and dad just gave out a membership. Thank you so much, mom and dad.
Aww. That's so sweet.
And I'll
family
just
hugs. Give a family hug, Jay.
Big family. That's a real legit family hug. You know, it kind of reminds me of, and you know, I know the Adelson case is like my case of reference, but it's another case with co-conspirators, and it just reminds me of like when Charlie was, you know, when you have co-conspirators, when you have one trial, they're all going to be mentioned. And like Melanie, I don't think it is it's named a co-conspirator, but like when the evidence comes out, like when Charlie Adelson's trial happened, I'm like, this is almost also Donna's, even though she's not on trial, because they're all like together doing this stuff. So it's kind of similar in that sense.
Yeah, but it's like conspiracy cases are tough, though. You know, like going into Lori's trial. And again, I know Allison was like pounding you guys over the head with our coverage on that, but if you haven't listened to it, it's worth your time. It's really good because we give a lot of analysis in terms of like, because we would break down like kind of what I like to do here, where we'll pause it just for a second, which we won't miss 1 second of the cross, y'all. We'll listen to all of it. But, you know, we'll pause it and then we'll kind of give you a legal analysis of like whether or not that was effective or what point they're trying to make. And, you know, in that case, I was very concerned. I always felt secure in the fact that we have this situation where we've got a mother who is all but abandoned her children and does not appear to give a shit. And that was going to resonate with the jury to the extent that it didn't matter what they put on in terms of evidence. She was going down. No one is giving a pass to a mother who has abandoned their children. Chad ain't that guy. You know what I'm saying? It's like Chad, these weren't Chad's kids. Chad was like, they were recently married. It's like my point being that he's in a much different position if this jury does not know the backstory, you know. But there's going to be a lot more coming in, but just in terms of this particular testimony, I think he's winning. He's winning. We all better hope that your theory that the guy's such a condescending prick that's outweighing the fact that he's winning points. Because I mean, I wouldn't say he's bullying her yet. He's getting close. It got very antagonistic there a couple of minutes ago, where there was a little bit of a back and forth. Because like sometimes you have to slip into that mode, and it happens for the state as well. Like, I mean, anytime you're crossing somebody, like I said, you're not sitting down for a nice, tea and biscuits here. It's a cross-examination. It's supposed to be vigorous, but like we all know, how it comes off to the jury is critical. And before we jump back, Jay, speaking of the Adelsons, Dizzy was telling me this morning that Shanna Gardner has a hearing today to try to DQ the state's attorney's office. So Dizzy will keep us. I know there's a bunch of our subs in the chat that are very interested in that case. Dizzy's going to be keeping an eye on that. She will relay the information when we find out what's going on there. I don't even know what the basis of the DQ is. I have a pretty good idea based on some of the that's another crazy one. But when we find out what's going on there, we will definitely update y'all.
Absolutely. And JD, thank you so much for being a member for 6 months.
You also
long time OG
had a nickname as well, right?
Yes.
Phoebe?
Yes, that sounds familiar.
You went by Phoebe? It's familiar?
Very occasionally she would say that.
Okay.
Yes.
And Judge, this slide I'm about to show comes from Exhibit 7D, which was previously admitted by stipulation of the parties. I can show it to counsel if you like.
Thank you, KTG. Gifted our membership to Laura Blake. Thank you so much, KTG. You are awesome.
Beautiful.
I can confess.
The Elmo, and I'll try to navigate through that if I can.
Oh, God. There we go.
There.
Caveman lawyer clip.
Is this defense exhibit 70?
Your world
It is defense exhibit 7, Judge, and
confuses me.
section D.
7. Okay.
7. I'm sorry, 7.
He is, Sleuth. He is.
I also have a
So
thank.
that Elmo has both a light and a zoom in out feature on it, Mr. Pryor.
Do your work, Pryor.
Thank you very much.
That's a little thank you I got. I'm sure you know who that is, right, Bob? Oh, I forgot to put on the freaking ticker.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. No, who is that?
Andy Kaufman.
Thank you very much.
Latka. One point I want to make that both attorneys and you can tell by the judge's demeanor in terms of his reactions to both attorneys that he believes that this is a very clean trial that's going on. He's not having to deal with the typical bullshit that you'll see in a lot of trials where you've got the attorneys sniping at one another. This is like from both sides is a very professionally well done trial thus far.
Can I have you stand here for me?
Looks like is this text messages is showing?
So you previously discussed the fact that you never talked about dark portals or dark lives and things like that, correct?
I didn't go around teaching them to people that I can recall.
Okay, well, this is an email. I'll represent this as an email from Lori Vallow to you, and it says Phoebe. And then you responded with the email below, and I apologize for the print on there, but if you could read from thanks and go down to the bottom to me.
Thanks. I love you so much. I'm going to teach you right now, teaching about discerning and shutting off dark portals.
Now, I will represent to you that that was an email that was put together, and it was from you to Lori Vallow. Do you recall that?
I don't recall that email.
Okay. But in that email, you're talking about teaching people about dark portals. Correct?
It sounds like she said she was going to teach me.
Do we need to look at it again? Judge, could I approach the witness with the exhibit?
If you've got a printed copy, you can have the bailiff take the exhibit to the witness.
I got another clip for I don't think this is the one I played before for Chad's stupid head.
Well, that's a huge noggin. That's a virtual planetoid.
Judge, may we
Has its
approach
own
briefly?
weather system.
Yes.
It's like an orange on a toothpick.
Oh, we got an approachal, folks, so I can fast forward this.
Approachal.
Thank you all so much. Oh, Chad's writing some notes with his big head. Thank you all so much for being here.
Could I
We
have that
appreciate
returned to
it.
me, please?
Wait, whoops.
Just to read that.
Yes.
Mr. Bailiff, could I have that returned to me, please?
That exhibit, Mr. Pryor, based on sidebar, we're going to designate Defense Exhibit 7C
Oh, I forgot to do
is what
shots.
was just published to the jurors and given to the witness.
Now, Ms. Gibb, the date of this email from Lori Vallow to you was dated 7/25 of 2019.
Okay.
Okay. And at that time, you were in the process at about that time, very time, on the way to a mountain retreat camp to teach that in the next few days, right at the time you sent this, correct? Remember that?
No,
You don't remember that?
I don't remember anything about me teaching anybody anything like that.
Okay. So you're denying the
Well,
fact
if you
that
want to. You could do
you
a
and Ms.
job.
Vallow had a conversation and you talked about teaching and shutting off dark spirits or dark portals, right?
Incorrect. She shared that.
Oh, she shared that with you.
No, that text says that she wanted to teach me. It had nothing to do with what I responded to that I can see from that text.
Well, forgive me, but the text says, I'm going to teach right now, teaching about discerning and shutting off dark spirits. So it's your contention then that you're not Phoebe, right?
Well, I gather from that conversation that she was sharing that with me.
Okay. Well, I gather from the conversation that you were sharing that with her. So we have a disagreement, don't we?
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative.
Sustained.
Okay. So your position is you never talked or taught in any camp. Is that right, about dark portals? Is that what you're
That's
testifying to?
correct.
Okay. Okay.
Vapid is an excellent word.
Now, you also previously testified that you never discussed dark and light or super dark or different levels of dark and light. Is that right?
Super dark.
I discussed it at times with probably people in the inner circle, but I didn't go around teaching it that I can recall.
I didn't ask about teaching. I said that you had discussions with people about light and dark then, right?
Right.
So that's not a term that's not unfamiliar to you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So when you say the inner circle, does that include Mike James?
No.
Okay, so you never had a discussion with Mike James about super dark and dark, is that right?
What
Not
about
to my
Rick James and
recollection.
Super
Okay.
Freak?
Would it refresh your recollection that on November 12th of 2019, you contacted Lori Vallow complaining about Mike James and someone named Nancy being super dark? Does that refresh your recollection?
I don't recall that.
Okay. And if I were to show that to you, would that help you refresh your recollection?
It doesn't matter to me. Regardless, I just don't recall it.
Okay. Well, Mr. Bailiff, could you provide this to Ms. Gibb? Mr. Bailiff, if I may, please. It doesn't. Does this refresh your recollection, Ms. Gibb?
No,
It doesn't.
I don't recall.
Okay. Well, do I need to show it to you again and ask you?
I can read it and I see what it says. I just don't recall that text.
Okay. So you don't recall talking about Mike James and asking for a favor and
Distinction
mentioning
object
that
right
someone
here.
named Nancy is super dark, but obviously,
Pause it, Jay. If if you give a witness, if they say that their memory's been exhausted and the defense, the way that you refresh somebody's recollection, you say, okay, well, is there something that exists that I can refresh a recollection with? And they say, well, yeah, maybe a report or maybe a copy of the email or a copy of the text. And you bring it up to them, they read it and they say, and then the lawyer asks as prior, has your memory been refreshed? And if the witness says no, he can't question her on it. The state should be objecting because now he's just restating the testimony that she's saying was not refreshed by her reading it. Because it's one thing, because remember, there's a distinction between, does the fact that I've now read that bring back the memory in my mind, or am I just reading that and you're wanting me to repeat it? It's two different things. Actually having something say, oh yeah, now I remember that, is different than, I just read it, but it's like I don't remember that happening, even though I just read it on a piece of paper. It's a thin line, but it's a real line that exists. So if the state doesn't object here, that's on the state. They should absolutely be objecting here.
There was that conversation, right?
According to that text, but I don't recall that text.
Okay. And talking about being violent and bad language.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay. You're not denying that this text exists, are you?
No, I just don't recall it.
You just don't recall talking about super dark. So when you gave your testimony that you never really preached or talked about super dark or super light or anything like that, is that still accurate?
I don't recall talking to people outside of the inner circle about that.
Okay, well, that's Mike James, and you just told me Mike James is not in the inner circle.
He's not.
So that's somebody you were talking to Lori about, and it was based on a discussion about light and dark, right?
Right.
So you did talk outside your inner circle about this, didn't you?
Incorrect.
Incorrect? Well, Mike James isn't in your inner circle.
No.
Mike James is unloading on me and says Nancy is super dark. So are you suggesting that, it was just Mike James saying the super dark and you were just listening? Is that what you're saying?
I don't recall how I felt at that time or what he was saying context. I just have no memory of that. I'm sorry.
Okay, and then your lack of memory is
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative. These have been asked and answered, and this is a narrative.
This last
Long
question
objection.
was not a question. It was argumentative. It's sustained.
Judge, and I think I'm going to move on. Okay.
Sure.
You mentioned about castings.
Right.
She looks evasive.
And it's your testimony that prior to meeting Lori Vallow, you never engaged in castings. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. But then when you met Lori Vallow, you started the process of engaging in castings.
Correct.
And you mentioned that as part of castings, physical violence to anyone was never part of the solution there, right?
Correct.
The solution was to engage in castings and pray to have evil spirits leave the body of the people you believe are possessed.
Correct.
Death was never in the equation for castings. Is that right?
I guess they eventually said that they would pass on if the evil spirits would leave.
So is that something that's consistent with your LDS faith?
No.
But you engaged in that conduct, right?
Correct.
Okay. Did anybody force you to engage in that conduct?
No.
Okay. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. We previously talked about you going to Hawaii to visit Lori in 2019. Okay. Did Lori pay for your flight on that trip?
I don't think so. I don't recall.
Don't recall, right? Okay. But Tylee was not there. That what you recall?
Not when I was there.
There were occasions when Lori would pay for people's flights. Do you recall that ever occurring?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you ever have a discussion with Lori about paying for Chad's flight to speak in Arizona?
Doesn't sound familiar.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Sure, lady. Yeah, I see where you guys are coming with that.
I want to go back over the
okay. All
the
right.
timeline a little bit about the weekend of the 19th through the 23rd. Okay.
Okay.
You arrived in Idaho Falls on the 19th. Is that what you recall?
Yes.
That was a Thursday, right?
Yes.
Okay. Lori picked you up at the airport. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was Alex there as well?
He wasn't in the car. No.
Okay.
Good morning, Dick.
You also, on that Thursday, in a previous interview with law enforcement, mentioned that you
And I'm muted. Just got a $10 PayPal from Sinead, who I believe is one of our new beaux. So Sinead, thank you so much for the $10 PayPal.
That's amazing. And
went to a restaurant.
Sinead's from the other side of the pond, yeah?
Oh yeah, she's from Ireland, I believe.
I love that. I love that.
immediately upon arriving in Idaho Falls on that Thursday.
That's right.
And that restaurant, if I recall, was a Johnny Carino's. Does that ring a bell?
I just know it was an Italian restaurant.
Okay. Okay. At that point, was JJ with you too when you went to Johnny Carino's?
I don't recall seeing him there.
Okay. Do you recall that Lori had hired a babysitter that day?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. And Alex was with you because the JJ was with a babysitter, right?
That's right, Mandy.
I believe he met us at the restaurant.
Okay. 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 And after you were at the restaurant, do you recall that the two of you then went to a Walmart?
I don't recall.
Okay. It's possible you went to a Walmart afterwards, right?
It's possible.
Okay. And then you, after going to Johnny Carino's and going to the Walmart, it was relatively late that night, correct?
I feel like it was in the afternoon.
Okay. Is that what you recall?
Yes.
Okay. But then is it your testimony that the remainder of the day you and Lori spent time together, you didn't see Chad, correct?
I don't recall if Chad came over or not. I just know I was with her.
Okay. And that was Thursday, we're correct?
Yes.
Okay, so then we move on to Friday.
Thank you, Catherine.
Do you recall going to a place called the Gravity Factory on
It's
Friday?
some jump place.
I think that's
Gravity
what that was.
Factory.
Yeah,
I
I
wanna
do
go
recall
there.
going there.
Talked about that with law enforcement, right?
Yes,
I think you called it like a jump house or something like that.
like that.
Do you remember about what time you folks went to the jump house?
See, I
On
think he's
Friday?
talking to her like she's a big fat liar.
Well, I'm not sure it was Friday, but it was daylight outside.
Okay. Well, we know that it wasn't Thursday because we already discussed Thursday, correct?
I can't say if it was or wasn't. It could we could have done it on Thursday.
You could have.
Yeah, I don't recall when we actually went.
Okay. So you recall telling law enforcement in an interview that on Friday you went to the jump house or to the Gravity Factory. Do you recall telling law enforcement?
I don't recall the date I shared with them.
Okay. And you don't recall what time you went to the Gravity House or the jump house, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. On Friday morning, do you recall going anywhere Friday morning?
I just know specific things we did. I just can't always recall exactly what day it was.
And then do you recall that after you had spent amount of time, before we get there, the jump house, that wasn't for you and Lori, right?
Correct.
That was for JJ?
Correct.
Okay. And you don't recall the number of hours you spent at the jump house, do you?
I would say it was maybe around 2 hours.
Okay. And that was, and my recollection is that was in Idaho Falls, correct?
I don't know where it was.
Oh, you don't remember?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, Robin, trampoline park.
And then
with,
after
like,
the jump house,
inflatables.
you and Lori and
Inflatable.
JJ by the way, was Alex there too at the jump house with you guys?
I remember he came and went. He brought some pizza, I believe.
Well, you guys went out for pizza, didn't you?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
You didn't bring pizza.
I feel like he brought something in. That's just my memory.
Right.
Yeah.
What happened is you went to the jump house, and then isn't it true you afterwards Alex came by, and then all of you went out to have a bite to eat for dinner at a pizza place, correct?
I don't recall what day it was, but we did go out for pizza one night.
And then after you went out for pizza, you went back to the townhome, correct?
I don't remember.
Okay, well, you went back because you had to gather your things to go pick up Dave, right?
I didn't have to pick up Dave.
Well, who picked up Dave?
No one.
He drove in?
Yes.
I was under the impression Dave flew in.
No.
Okay. That Dave flew in, that's not correct?
That's not correct.
Okay. And then on Friday evening, the folks in the townhouse that evening were you and Dave,
Correct.
your boyfriend at the time, Lori and Alex,
Yes.
and JJ.
And JJ. And I think Chad was there too.
Oh, how long was Chad there?
I don't recall.
Okay.
Did his head
Or is it
stay after his
possible that
body
Chad
left
wasn't
the
there?
building?
It's possible.
Okay. And then do you recall if Alex and your boyfriend at the time were playing Guitar Hero on a video game?
They were playing. I remember watching it. I might have at some point just jumped in a little bit and danced a little bit.
Okay. We don't.
Jay, that's my
That's
first
okay.
ever PayPal
But
that somebody's
the two of
PayPal
them had spent
on the stream.
That's awesome, dude. These QR codes, man, they're pretty
amazing.
pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah, guys, if you look in the top left, I keep changing between mine and Bob's Venmo and Bob's Linktree and mine Linktree. If you ever just want to scan, if you need our links, periodically I'll throw them up. And always in the top left there'll be something.
And Megan's comment or Meg's comment was it was $20 for the okay foundation. So
Nice.
okay.
spent a considerable amount of time that Friday night playing Guitar Hero, Alex and Dave, correct?
No, I don't believe Dave ever did.
Oh, Dave watched Alex play?
Yes, I guess so.
Okay.
Okay.
And then we go on
Okay.
to Saturday. You got up in the morning and prepared to go to this firm foundation thing, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, do you remember in one of your text messages to Prosecutor Wood that you mentioned that you were there at the firm foundation for about 10 hours taking pictures? Do you recall talking to Prosecutor Wood about that?
I don't recall talking to him about that.
Is it possible you spoke to him about that?
It's possible.
Okay. So you were at the firm foundation and you said you were there for about 10 hours, correct?
I think I was. I just don't remember.
Okay. And do you recall that it was rather late at night on Saturday when you got done with the firm foundation?
Yes, yes.
And you didn't see Chad that night either, did you?
I don't recall seeing him.
Okay, right.
No, I get the
So then we
cliff
go
notes
on to Sunday.
soaking. We used to
You were
call
here
that-
for soaking, weren't you?
Yeah, well, no,
And,
I think I was originally, but I forgot. I mean, we used to call that dry humping.
You guys,
My
you and
day.
Dave slept in that
It's
morning,
different
correct?
than that.
Recall that?
It's not dry.
I do not recall
Well,
that.
I mean,
Okay.
in the sense that
Anyway, you
people's
woke up
clothes were
late,
still on.
apparently, and
Right.
Objection, Your Honor,
occurred.
misstates the prior testimony and counsels, it's a narrative.
Sustain.
is it possible you slept in till late Sunday morning?
No,
It's not possible?
I don't sleep in.
Okay, thank you.
For folks who haven't heard about soaking, I'll explain at the break. Boy,
oh God, we're gonna have another soaking tutorial.
you're not.
I'm gonna give you all a trigger warning just in case. You know,
you're not gonna believe your
not
ears.
for the faint of heart.
Do you recall that Lori gave you a haircut that Sunday?
Yes.
Okay, and how long did that take?
A few hours because she colored my hair too.
Okay, so that was Sunday morning, correct?
I think so.
Okay, and do you recall about what time that was?
I don't.
Okay. Sometime in the morning, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then you folks went to have lunch that after she cut your hair, correct?
No, I don't remember that at all.
Okay. Did you stay in the townhouse and bring lunch in?
I don't remember how the food was. I don't remember her having a lot of food. She might have made something. I don't remember.
Okay, but at that point, you hadn't seen Chad Daybell Sunday morning, correct?
No, I saw him Sunday morning.
You did? When was that?
Shortly after we went to this field behind a church building. So sometime in the morning. I felt like it was in the morning. Could have been late morning, but it was sometime.
Do you recall discussing with Lori that after Chad gets out of church Sunday afternoon, we'll go out and look at a piece of property? Do you recall having that conversation with Lori?
I don't recall, but it's possible.
Okay, so is it possible you're just confused about the facts and the time to go visit the land was really early to late afternoon on Sunday?
I felt like her seeing a piece of land that I talked about first, and then the going to see that land for sale was second. That's just my memory.
Oh, so you went to see a piece of land with Lori first?
Well, I wouldn't consider it was just this empty field that was behind a church, but it wasn't for any purpose of being purchased.
So you were traveling to the piece of property that you were going to go look with Alex and David, but you were traveling with Lori at that point, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Misstates the testimony. It's a narrative. I'd move to strike.
Overruled.
You were traveling with Lori to go look at the piece of property with the real estate person, correct?
No.
Who were you traveling with?
I don't know who I was traveling with. I think maybe Dave and I were in the truck and we drove over there. I don't remember.
You don't remember. So it's possible that you were traveling with Lori as well, right?
No.
Okay. So you remember you weren't with Lori.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay. But you had mentioned that you and Lori went to see a piece of parcel first.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then subsequent to that, you went to look at another piece of property, correct?
Correct.
And then Chad was meeting you at that second piece of parcel, correct?
Correct.
And then do you recall you told in an interview to law enforcement that Chad was still in his church clothes at that point?
Could be.
Okay. Well, do you remember that or not?
I don't remember the conversation.
Okay. So it's possible that you told law enforcement that Chad was in his church clothes in the afternoon when he went out to see the property, correct?
It's true.
Correct.
It is
Okay.
all about remaining pure. Soaking.
So you did see
Allows you to
Chad
be
at the
pure,
property
Jay.
at that point, correct?
Correct.
Gotta
And
let
that's the one we're really
workaround.
sure about, right?
I'm sure about both of them, but yes, he was at that one.
You're sure? Which is the other one that you're so sure about?
The one that we just talked about, the prior one,
Prior one about what?
the parcel that we went to first.
Okay. Oh, Chad was there too?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then afterwards, you went back
All right.
to the townhome, correct?
Okay. Really? Really?
I think so, but I don't recall for sure.
Okay. And Chad didn't go with you back to the townhome, did he?
I don't think so.
Okay. And then at that point, you were getting prepared for your podcast that you were going to do that night, right?
We didn't prepare for that till the evening.
Okay. And again, on a Sunday evening, Chad wasn't there for the podcast, correct?
Correct.
And then just to clarify again, after you did the podcast, that was late in the, well, it could have been as late as Monday morning, but it was after midnight sometime, right?
Hammered.
I'm not sure if it was after midnight. I just know it was around that time.
Okay. And then and then we'll move on to Monday. And Monday, you departed and left to go back home. Is that correct?
No.
What did you do on Monday?
Dave and I drove to Pocatello to see his son.
Okay.
Jay, we need an
And
okay
you left at
calendar.
about 9:30.
That sounds about right.
I wish I could do
Isn't
that.
it true that you
It is
and Alex and Dave
at least at the time
drove
of
by Chad's
Lori's
property
trial, we
Monday
actually
morning?
we played portions of that
Okay.
podcast on our coverage for Lori's trial, if it's not still out there.
Judge, I have nothing else. Thank you.
Oh, he's
All right,
gone.
thank you,
Wow.
Mr. Pryor.
Wow.
Now time to try to rehabilitate. And
Yeah.
folks, if you want to check out the podcast, scan that QR code. Bob's link
Ms.
tree
Blake, you can
has his
conduct
podcast, all
redirect
his
if you'd like.
links, top left.
That's already up there. But it has to be.
And thank you all for being here. If you could hit that like, we'd greatly appreciate it. Get it in the algo. And Bob's got $20 from Robin. Says, I don't recall an okay or in a close race. My money is on okay for the win.
Thank you so much, Robin.
All right, sorry, Ms. Blake,
Really,
we are
really appreciate
labeling
that.
the one that was specifically referenced at exhibit 7. Yes.
Facts. 18. We've asked you a lot of stuff from the years of 2018, 2019. Have you done your best to recall the facts?
Yes.
Jeez,
With
QR
regard to
code
Lori,
by the
we
guys.
talked about your relationship with her. And
Sharad,
at times, I
that's
think you
Jay
indicated
and
you
I
had daily
as
contact.
stepbrothers.
Right.
We love that.
And at times it was
traffic,
more
and we're never
sporadic.
taking
Correct.
it down ever.
Never.
But this contact with her spanned over a period of time, correct?
Did we
Yes.
just become best friends?
You
I'll do
were
karate
asked
in the
if
garage.
you thought Chad believed that he could
And they
see
do.
visions.
They do karate.
And I
in
think
the
you said
garage.
yes, that was your understanding.
Yes.
Did Chad ever indicate to you that he had visions?
Well, he shared them publicly, so yes.
Here we go, bringing it
So
back
Chad
to Chad.
shared that he did have visions.
Yes.
It's gonna be a recross.
You were asked yesterday about the term vibration.
Yes.
Did Chad and Lori ever use the term vibration?
Yes.
How did they use it?
They used it in a way to express their what they thought their knowledge was about being translated.
Thank you, Angie. Very proud.
And when we talk about that, did your level in translation equate with the vibration number?
Yes.
What did they teach regarding that?
So the higher the number, the closer to the body being in a translation state.
And what did they talk about in relation to a translated state?
Your body would be changed in a way that you wouldn't have to eat or, I don't know, drink, but you know, I don't know, your body's just more, I guess, stronger, powerful.
And you wouldn't need some of the things that, generally speaking, mortals or bodies need to survive. Is that fair?
Yeah, yeah.
You were also asked some about light and dark, and you were asked about energy work as well. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that some people may have a glow
Judge, I'm
about
going to
them?
object. It's leading.
Sustain.
Your Honor, and I think, if I may respond.
Well, you can ask another question, but it is redirect, not recross. So that was the leading question.
I guess that's what I wanted to be heard on.
Go ahead.
I think there was some agreement to allow defense to go outside the scope of direct, and I do think questions were asked that opened this avenue.
Judge, could we approach?
That's not
Sidebar.
necessary. I'll make a ruling.
Oh.
There was some discussion,
Sidebar
and to the
denied.
extent that there was additional cross outside the scope
Rockin'
of
Robin.
direct, then it would be appropriate for leading on your redirect, Ms. Blake, on those topics. So I'll after reconsideration overrule that objection because it was a topic essentially brought up anew in cross. So I will allow some leading, Ms. Blake. So
I
go
like
ahead.
this judgment.
Thank you,
I really
Your
do.
It's a
Would it
great
be fair
judge.
to say that some people may have a glow about them?
Yes.
And is that a little bit different than the light and dark that Chad and Lori taught?
I think so.
You were asked about your communication with the prosecutors.
Yes,
And you acknowledge you had communication with the prosecutors.
that's right.
Did anything about that communication alter your memory of the events?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Sorry, did it change what you recall from the events with
Hey,
Chad and
Belle.
Lori, your
Morning.
communication with the prosecutors?
Hey, about
Well, no.
Did you ever personally observe Lori and Chad on the phone together?
Yes,
And were you with Lori when those conversations would happen?
yes,
Were you ever able to overhear some of the conversations?
just a little bit.
The afterglow.
After Lori would get off the phone with Chad, would she ever tell you what they talked about?
Yes,
And when she'd tell you what they talked about, would she share with you things Chad taught or told her?
yes.
Thank you, Angie.
And you were asked about in these, whether or not Chad had ever indicated to you that he intended to physically harm Tammy. And I think you said he'd never indicated that.
That's right.
And you also said he never indicated a specific intention to harm Lori's kids. Is that correct?
Yes.
Who was it that would label someone dark or a zombie again?
Chad.
And and once someone was labeled a zombie or dark, what was going to happen to their body? As Chad and Lori taught it.
If they could cast the evil spirit out, the body would naturally die.
So if someone was dark or a zombie, they were going to die.
Yes. Well, maybe. I mean, not everybody. They knew.
But that was the teaching. If the casting was successful, the body would die.
Right, right.
And JJ was labeled dark or a zombie.
Yes.
Tammy was labeled dark or a zombie.
Yes.
Charles was labeled dark or a zombie.
Yes.
And Tylee was labeled dark or a zombie.
Yes.
You were asked about that phone call, the recording from December 8th of 2019.
Yes.
And to be clear, did law enforcement ask you to record that?
Never.
Do you recall hearing Chad on there telling you that you may be in danger?
Yes.
As Lori talked, did Chad ever jump in and correct her? That you recall?
Say that again.
Did Chad ever jump in to correct Lori when you were on that call?
I don't recall that.
Mm.
And Chad was there with her for the call. We could hear him, correct?
Correct.
And Lori tells you JJ's okay.
Correct.
You were also asked about when Chad called you around Thanksgiving. Do you
Yes.
recall that call in 2019?
Yes.
And do you recall what Chad told you or asked you to do at that time?
He asked me not to pick up the phone when the police would call.
Do you recall asking him if JJ was with Kay?
Yes.
And what was Chad's response?
No. The answer was no.
So Chad knew he wasn't with Kay.
Yes.
Jen, welcome back. CJ, what's up, brother?
When that phone call was placed to you by Chad, did you know JJ was missing at that time?
I guess no, I didn't.
So when Chad first tells you not to talk to the police, you actually don't know JJ's been reported as missing.
Correct. Yeah.
I have no further questions.
Judge, I have just a couple of items on recross.
Okay, that's fine. Mr. Pryor, I'll ask some recross.
And Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes.
I thought she did a good job there. All bringing it back to Chad.
Sidebar. Yeah. I mean, kind of. Here's what I'm feeling. Pryor might be doing just enough for a jury to not feel comfortable giving him the death sentence.
Interesting.
You know, I feel confident they're going to come back with the guilty, but he might be saving this guy's life. You know, because that's a different thing. Like to go death penalty. You got to be,
Mr. Pryor, we discussed the scope of recross. Please keep it on those topics, and you can continue. With the microphone, Mr. Pryor, please.
Judge. Ms. Gibb, you talked about the fact that you participated in castings, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And as part of your participation in castings, you knew the intent of what a casting was used for was to rid the body of evil spirits, correct?
Correct.
But then you just testified with the prosecuting attorney that you also knew that at successful completion of the casting, the human body would die. So you knew that when you were doing this castings that apparently you were ending the life of a human body. Isn't that correct?
I had no idea what really the result would be.
Oh,
that was
okay.
the theory.
Okay. But you just said that the purpose of castings was to, when the prosecutor asked you about that it would end the life of a human body, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Misstates the testimony, misstates the prior question from the state.
Sustain. All right, that concludes the recross then. That will conclude the testimony of Ms. Gibb.
Morning break, I bet.
I believe
No, I
she's
don't
under
think so.
subpoena from the defense also, but I don't know that there's nothing covered that where I allowed the extended scope of cross. Do you intend to recall her, Mr. Pryor?
No, it
Judge,
is
I want to
about
keep
time.
her under subpoena at this point because if other
Ooh.
issues come up and I need Ms. Gibb to come back, I spoke with the prosecutor about how I can communicate with Ms. Gibb if that need arises. But at this point, I want to keep her under subpoena. I would ask the court to do an admonishment about not allowing her to view anything or talk to anybody about the case. But at this point, the final decision has not been made. And I explained that to the prosecutor, but in the event something comes up that I need to revisit that, I need to have that opportunity.
Very well. Ms. Gibb, that concludes your testimony for now. You may be recalled. Because you may be recalled and are under subpoena from the defense, I'll request and admonish you,
You're right.
not request, but you're admonished not to watch further trial proceedings that may be available on the live stream or to follow the case in any way until such time as you're released from the subpoena. Okay? All right.
Judge, could I also inquire that Ms. Gibb be advised about discussing her testimony or testimony with anybody else?
That's part of the admonishment. So
Judge.
that will conclude the testimony of Ms. Gibb. We're going to take a mid-morning recess and discuss scheduling as well as take up one issue outside the presence of the jurors. So at this time, we will break for our mid-morning recess and rise for the jurors, and I'll have counsel stay while we address that issue.
Ooh, let's see what the issue is. I was wondering why it wasn't going straight to break. Let's see. See you, Melanie.
To the manner in which I can understand the state was interested in putting an objection on the record relating to the manner in which recross is being permitted.
Yes, Your Honor. We had asked to approach in a sidebar about that. At this juncture, Mr. Pryor has been allowed to do a recross on almost every one of the state's witnesses, and I think it's extending beyond any new matters that may come up. So we're just objecting to the generality of him getting to recross and would request that it be limited to only if a new issue arises. So that we don't end up in a situation where then the state asks to do another redirect and
it's a judge's call.
And go down that.
And if I could respond, Judge Mead.
You may.
And quite frankly, Judge, it's not the prosecutor's prerogative, or is it their decision to decide when I get a recross? That's the judge's decision to make. So I don't know where Ms. Gibbs thinks she has the authority or the ability to say when.
Ms. Blake.
Miss Blake is what I said, Judge, I think. I did say Miss Blake, did I not?
Said Ms. Gibbs.
Miss Gibbs. I apologize.
Go ahead.
Miss Blake has the ability to dictate when this court makes its own independent decision when I'm permitted to have recross.
All right, well, evidentiary rulings and the way witnesses are examined are subject to rules as well as the court's discretion. Certainly the state can lodge an objection, and I'll pay attention to that. There is limitations on what is supposed to be allowed in the scope of redirect or recross. Part of the reason the court has been pretty liberal in allowing that is sort of a, I understood, standing agreement between the parties that with certain witnesses, instead of calling them twice, once in the defense or in the state's case, again in the defense case, for efficiency purposes, getting them on the stand once. I permitted extensive, on some witnesses, scope of cross beyond direct. If we are not going outside the scope as part of that agreement, then I would agree that it's not proper to allow recross every time. So I'll just watch for the topics that come up. And if we extend on cross beyond the scope and that's allowed, then that's where I think there's a second opportunity. So both sides essentially get a right to direct and cross a witness. So I'll just take that under advisement for future rulings. Any questions on that ruling, Ms. Blake?
Thank you, Your Honor. And the state does recognize it's clearly within the court's discretion. If we do have concerns in the future about a request for recross, would the court just like us to approach and then discuss that?
I just don't think those are prejudicial for the jurors, and approaching slows things down. So just
make the objection?
Just make an objection, I think, unless it's related to some specific topic that may prejudice the jurors. Let's just move it along with it.
And the state does agree that recross may absolutely be appropriate. It just seems that it is at times just rehashing the same stuff.
Very well. It'll be under advisement for future rulings. We'll take our rest of our recess at this time, and I do want to just briefly discuss the remaining schedule for today with counsel right now on a sidebar, and then we'll take our break.
Sidebar.
Why do it on a sidebar, dude? We want to know. I guess I'll probably tell the jury when they get back.
So that was interesting. And just so you guys know, the way that it works with what they're talking about beyond the scope is that, like, typically when you have a direct examination, you can cross them on every subject matter that arose during the direct. If prior starts getting into things that were not brought up on direct examination, then you should hear beyond the scope of direct, which means that, look, we didn't get into that subject matter. I don't know why he's allowed to cross her on that. When you get to redirect, typically that's done in order to try to rehabilitate something that occurred. So it should still be within that original scope of the direct, meaning that if prior came in and asked questions that weren't related, or if the judge sustained an objection as to beyond the scope, redirect is really just to try to rehabilitate issues that arose on cross-examination relating to the original subject matter of direct. So what they're talking about, like, recrosses are very rare. Like, typically we're denied. And if he goes beyond and brings up things that are not part and parcel of what was originally addressed on direct examination, he should be shut down from it. And he certainly shouldn't be rehashing. So the state's point was like, look, he's not recrossing as to a new issue that came up on redirect. He's just simply rehashing something so that the jury hears it again. So, but what was interesting is that there apparently was an agreement in terms of expediency and efficiency, so that they're not having to recall witnesses. As we've heard, there's been several witnesses where I've heard prior say, I might recall this cop, I might recall this witness in our case in chief. And apparently there was an agreement between both the state and the defense that, like, look, like, let's try to avoid that. So both of us will give a wider berth, more grace towards what you'll be able to get into, even though it might be beyond the scope, if that will alleviate the need to recall that witness, because that really does drag trials out. So it's pretty interesting exchange. And I have to say that I think Boyce is a very, very good judge. Like this is the kind of judge that you want to see, that follows the law. It's just not snap judgments. Like you'll have judges that just like will constantly deny objections by the defense, like, denied, like if he thinks that something is proper and is violating the rules of evidence, he calls it. Like, he's very even-handed. He's a very, very good judge. And again, that's what we want. We want a clean trial, because if you have a judge that's just denying everything that the defense puts up there, and like it doesn't look good on appeal, because they're going to be like, are these going to be things that necessarily allow it to get bounced back and the case retried? Not necessarily. However, he's making a very clean record, because I think he's properly ruling basically on every objection that I've heard. I haven't been like, wow, he's calling it like he sees it.
And also, what I like about him, he controls his courtroom. We have watched cases where the judge, like Y&W Melly was a case where the judge is just like constant. It was constant sidebars. Young Thug is a case where it's just getting out of control. He, like, for example, just before we saw the attorney, I think it was the state, was like, can we come up? He's like, no, I know. And like, he remembers what was said and he'll just make that decision. Sometimes he'll have sidebars, but I think rightfully so. But he really, like, he keeps the courtroom under control.
Oh, he's got it on lock, dude.
Yeah, it's infuriating watching it when the judges just let either attorney, it's too much. Like, he's keeping
in defense of the Young Thug trial. That is a RICO.
I know that, but
that's a shit show.
That is a shit show. It is.
It's so hard for a judge, because you've got so many attorneys that you're trying to keep like reeled in. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, you've got like, I forget, what is it, 5-6 defendants in there, and all their dude. That thing is like, any judge is going to struggle with that. It's like you almost need multiple judges. You need a judge for each set of like defense lawyers in there to kind of deal with that. But like, your point is well made. This guy is 100% controlling his court. That's what I was saying. Like, this is a very quiet, like, well put together trial. You're not getting the sniping between counsel. He's not having to admonish them that Pryor and Blake are like going at each other. Like, you're just not seeing any of that stuff. You're seeing the witnesses come on. You're not seeing speaking objections. It's a really well one. Like, I mean, we're cruising along. I honestly don't think this thing's gonna go 8 to 10 weeks, because he's doing such an efficient job in overseeing the trial. So.
And just don't send him a motion Friday at midnight, Bob. I keep thinking about that attorney today. Like, if he has like a docket or something, like, and all the attorneys like, holy shit, this dude just got reamed.
Everyone in Idaho knew about that. Like, because they have reporters, like there's like, it's called the Law Bulletin in Illinois. So like, basically you've got just their entire staff is just scouring the dockets, and they're always putting in like every case that comes up. They'll have every listing and they'll write stories about it. He was put on blast today. So, and I saw way earlier in the chat, and I apologize for not remembering who asked the question, but it was basically something relating to, if I had a guess as to what his fine might be, because remember the sanction for that was they wanted Pryor to log his hours as to what he may have spent in terms of responding to this. And we also had, the state having to put their hours together. I don't know. Like, if I'm Pryor, I wouldn't have wasted 1 second of my time worrying about that. And frankly, it was kind of telling when Ratliff said, oh, well, Pryor called me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we also know that the judge had said, moving towards this trial, when Pryor was like, I need out of this. I haven't been paid forever. And remember, and I've seen it a couple of times that Pryor's not death penalty certified, but when that distinction only comes into play when lawyers are appointed. So if Chad Daybell would not have retained private counsel, which he's allowed to do, he's allowed to hire anybody he wants, death penalty certified or not. That does not become an issue. If they're appointed a public defender, that's when that becomes an issue. So if the court had said, if Chad was like, oh, look, I'm indigent, I don't have any money, and they appointed him a PD on the front end, and they knew that it was a potential death penalty case, at that point, they would have had to have said, okay, we need a death penalty certified lawyer handling this, and then they get appointed. So like, that's a very clear distinction, because that Sixth Amendment right to counsel, you're free to whoever, hire whoever the hell you want to, whether or not, they're even qualified to handle the case. That's going to be on the defendant. Like, well, you should have done a little research. This guy's never tried a case, never tried a death penalty case, but when it's somebody that's appointed. So like, but going into that, when we heard that, that Pryor had reached out to Ratliff, I'm sure it was during that period of time where Boyce denied him getting out of the case. He's like, we're on the eve of trial, dude. Like, I'm sorry you haven't been paid, but you're stuck like Chuck and you're going forward on this thing. And that's one of the reasons I really respect the job that Pryor is doing, because Pryor has not been paid, because Chad's been in custody forever. This guy doesn't have a pot to piss in. So Pryor's basically doing this trial on the arm, on the come for nothing. Whatever he was paid, I'm sure has been long exhausted. And you can see how much work it is to prepare and to conduct a trial like this for both sides. If you were to look at what the state has sunk in terms of paying their staff, their attorneys, all the people that clerk for them, it's a fortune, and the state's obviously getting paid for it. Pryor's in here, and I respect the hell out of the fact that he's trying this case. He could have come in and did what Archibald did, which is nothing. Archibald sat there like a stone golem through that entire trial. No cross-examination of any kind of substance at all on any of the witnesses. It was stunning to me. Like, if when that thing gets appealed with Lori Vallow's case, if they don't find that he was ineffective, I'll be shocked, because he just didn't give any resistance. That's why I'm always saying, look, I know you guys hate Pryor, but like, he's doing the job. We want him doing the job. So this case, when we get that conviction, is going to stand up on appeal, and it's not going to get like, it's the way that you want to see trials happen, because to have like a bunch of idiots on the defense side and just having the state steamroll through it, the Constitution doesn't allow for it, so.
I got a question for Jan, and then I'm going to go get Prudence because she keeps barking. Bob, do you think the prosecution isn't objecting as much because it's a death penalty case, or just not objecting to the Pryor's cross going outside the scope to not stir the pot with the jury? Or what's your thoughts on that?
It could be a little bit of both. And I think, Legal Mama, it might have something to do with this. Like, it sounds like it was a verbal agreement between the state and Pryor regarding kind of the broad path that the judge is giving. He's given a lot of leeway in terms of recrossing. So I think that that's probably why we're not hearing those beyond the scope objections from the state when he's on recross or even cross like that. Like, they're trying to avoid having to recall witnesses that have already testified. I think that that's probably the reason why we're not hearing those certain objections. I mean, she seems to be objecting if it's repetitive, like he does have a habit of trying to drill home points by restating things that have already been asked and answered. So that's why that's probably the most common objection I've been hearing from the state, because it is improper. It's like improper bolstering. It's like it's a trick that I use all the time, or it's a point that I made and I want to make sure that it stuck with the jury. So I'll ask the question again, and the reason that you have that asked and answered is to stop that because of the improper bolstering. So that's my best guess on it. So I think it's part and parcel of those two things.
Bob, you got Dawn 5 months.
Family hug, Dawn. Always give her, adore you. Yeah, doubtful, Dawn. Like, I'm guessing she's not watching this trial. Let's Bob, Susan Skinner asked, do you think Ratliff will face issues with the bar for that issue? 100%. I will. So because it's one thing to get sanctioned by the judge in Illinois. If you're sanctioned, it gets kicked to the disciplinary committee automatically. It's like a mandatory reporting situation. So I fully anticipate that Ratliff is going to get a nice little notice from the disciplinary committee that there's been a complaint, and he's going to have to answer for it. Like, and that is probably, and if it makes its way, which disciplinary issues in Illinois are confidential up until the point where if it gets past like the first phase of it, where they're saying, okay, this is what the complaint is, we're giving you X amount of time to respond to it. What is your response? And if they find that it's insufficient, you know, and we know what his explanations could be. He's like, oh, it was awful. It was like auto-populated boilerplate forms I was using. That was my mistake. Probably because he was shit-faced when he was preparing them at midnight. Is, you know, half a bottle into, you know, a bourbon session, and, you know, getting a little sloppy with his work. And, you know, we don't know what his argument was, because the general proposition is that you cannot, in a criminal case, intervene. Like, Jay, you would be used to seeing interveners in civil cases because that's where the statute allows for parties to intervene. There's times in civil cases where it's mandatory that there's an intervener because it's a necessary party to the action. That is not the case in criminal cases, because you're talking about the state and you're talking about the defendant, period. There's only one person on trial. Attorneys cannot intervene. So that's why he was saying, oh, well, you know, I was really coming at this as a concerned citizen. And, you know, his argument is going to be, look, we found some case law on rare occasions where, you know, if as a member of the defense bar, I saw what was going on, that it was proper or potentially allowable for me to try to intervene, specifically with respect to the fact that Boyce had refused and denied the defense's request for a continuance on this matter. Now, I know where the judge is coming from. They, you know, when you are this long in the tooth in terms of trial pending, judges are ready to get this thing rolling. That's their job. Their job is, you know, through the administration of justice, to give both sides enough time in order to properly prepare. And once it gets to that point, they're not going to continue to allow the families of the victims to wait. You know, it's time for justice. And the judge was well within his discretion to say, I'm denying that. There's no way I'm giving you a continuance on that. So this guy, whatever Ratliff's position was, you know, with respect to, you know, he must have felt that there was like a warranted reason for the matter to be continued. Now, obviously, I don't know what his arguments are, but, you know, like with Delphi, there's a speedy trial demand there, you know, and I constantly worry because I know what it entails to prepare a defense for a case like that. And, you know, they were booted from the case. They got back, you know, on the case in January. They didn't get all the discovery returned to them until February. And now we're on the verge of trial, which essentially means that they've had 3 months to, you know, reconfigure and get themselves reacclimated. And it's not a lot of time, you know? So like, there's this part of me from the defense, just strictly from a defense lawyer's perspective and understanding how much needs to go into it. You know, that I'm concerned that they should even be going to trial here on Delphi when they are, you know, like if they feel comfortable, you know, they would know. I don't know where they're at in terms of their prep, but, you know, it's like when you're seeing that they're being denied funds for experts, you have to concern yourself with, well, if you're not able to get the experts, how are you going to be ready to go for trial? Because you can't have the state who's got resources, you know, typically to get whatever experts they need. You can't have a defense coming in without having some kind of counter to the state's experts, because it just doesn't play well to the jury. You know, it makes it look like you're putting up no defense, and appearances are everything, as we know, in trials. So, yeah, man. So that's my, for those that missed the very exciting after collateral issue hearing yesterday, that's my 2 cents on the Ratliff issue.
And Bob, you got a super chat during that, and I got a member, Mar. Thank you, and I got a couple new thank yous. Here's one thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Lippy.
And of course, I got.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I thought I had another one. Is this?
I said money. Money.
Oh, thank you. I don't know if I'll butcher this. It looks like Train, TREYN 444. Sorry if I butchered your name, but I appreciate that $2 holla. Thank you very much.
For folks who missed it, if you missed Karen Reed yesterday, they stopped picking. They're off today. They have 12 jurors. They need 4 more. However, Bob, I don't know if you saw this. I just see a tweet here from one of the reporters covering it. The ACLU in Massachusetts brief. I don't know how to say it. Amicus. I'll throw it on the screen, and you can amicus
brief.
Filed with SJC over buffer zone appeal. After single justice denial, petitioners are asking full court to consider the appeal. They made several good points. So there's, I guess, that buffer zone, they are not happy about that.
Yeah, it's, well, like my opinion is that is a violation of First Amendment rights. Like I don't know. I mean, I understand the judge's reasoning behind it. My opinion as being a constitutional stalwart is that it's in violation of the First Amendment. I don't think that she has the ability. That's what I'm always, going on about. Oh, well, the government cannot put laws into effect that, affect our First Amendment rights or any of our rights under the Bill of Rights. It's like literally why the document exists. Like it's a, basically a rule book for the government to know you cannot make laws that affect these rights. And she effectively made a law that is not allowing people to basically voice their opinion on a certain issue. And, her rationale is like, I don't want to create an issue where the jury is going to be swayed by what they're seeing. But to me, just like during voir dire, where you have the jurors come in and they say, yeah, I've seen coverage about this, and yeah, maybe I've formed an opinion, and they consider it to be that juror to be rehabilitated when the judge asks them the question, okay, well, I understand that you formed an opinion. However, in light of that, are you able, as you sit here now, will you be able to hear the evidence and follow the law, despite whatever your opinion may be? And if that juror says yes, well, then they're considered rehabilitated. Now, I, as a defense attorney, am arguing, well, that's bullshit. If they formed an opinion, like, I don't care what they're saying in front of you. Of course, they're going to say yes. I say that, but I've had jurors or prospective jurors be very honest, which is all we ever asked of jurors. If you formed an opinion and you're like, nah, nothing's going to change my mind, dude. This guy did it. Like, that's just how I feel about it. I don't care what I hear from the defense. I want to know that on the front end, because we can't have that person on a jury because they're flouting the law. They're not following the law. And the law is that you have to put aside any of your thoughts or any of your feelings that may exist prior to coming in. And, you've got to just rule on the facts, the law, and the evidence. That's it. That's what you're basing your decision on, not anything that you might have thought prior. And I think that applies to jurors that may see people, that are out there protesting or showing support for either side, because I think the way that it is, I think there's plenty of people that are justice for, John O'Keefe, Karen Reed's guilty. I think there's both sides out there being represented. I think the Free Karen Reed crowd might be a little more loud, but I think it's
Yurtsin things brings up a good point here. Well, first of all, you got a super chat from Galen, who says, I've got my mom and mother-in-law watching the case, and they don't find Melanie credible. They know nothing about the case, and it's fun. So let me say,
thank you very much.
And
thank you, Galen, so much for that $10 holla.
Yurtsin things makes a good point. Like, what about the fact, I could see it seems like it's getting contentious out there, and particularly to like the victims, family. Like, you don't want, because people have like harassed them, and like, so I wonder if that maybe is part of like the judges. I don't know what the judges, but
I
that's
mean,
like, you don't want that either. Like, it sucks. It just sucks.
well, like the bigger picture is, number one, the main harasser had picked up criminal charges. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you just can't make laws that are infringing upon our rights, and you can't make rulings, which, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah, no, I
there's
get
a
it.
remedy for that. There's a remedy for that. And Turtle Boy spent 90 days in jail for him.
But how do you remedy like a large, like, if I don't know, I haven't seen it all, but like, say her, the family is walking in and they're like, people are yelling at, I guess you just have to like have the police there and kind of like just like separate, and like, you can't, I mean, but that's freedom of speech too. You can't tell them,
100%.
you can't tell them not to yell at them, but it's shitty to yell at, like, a really fucking shitty.
It's
to
super
yell
shitty
at a
you know,
victim's, friends and family. I mean, come
and
on.
those people like have to look themselves in the mirror every day, but it's like, it's, to me, it's no different than, when they're perp walking defendants in, and you got people like, screaming and burn in hell, before, like, you're gonna die. I mean, it's all like, we have the ability in this country to speak our piece, short of screaming fire in a crowded theater. I mean, there's certain things that you cannot do. If it's going to put other citizens at risk, then we can't do it. That doesn't fall under the First Amendment. But, in terms of being able to speak our opinion on things, like, I can, so, if when an amicus brief is filed, that is essentially when you have concerned attorneys that are voicing the exact same concerns that I'm voicing right now, and I can, without even reading it, I can guarantee you that every one of them is saying that this is a violation of First Amendment rights. So, because it is, in my opinion. So that's what you're seeing. In terms of the buffer zone, we'll see. Like, the judge isn't changing her mind on it. I guarantee you that. It's like motions, like a motion to reconsider is, that's where you're asking a judge, hey, we really think you screwed up on that ruling. You want to change your mind? We're giving you a chance to change your mind here. Are you going to do it, Judge? And judges are typically like, nah, I'm good.
And we're back, folks, in a second.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you all so much for being here. If you could hit that like, if you hadn't already. While they set up, I just want to give a little reminder. Tonight at 9 p.m., I'm going to be on Publicly Buzzed. First half hour, me and Chris Duet, Steve and Dan. First half hour YouTube, then going to Kick to watch Half Baked. If you guys don't know,
let's go ahead and have the jurors return, please.
It's like YouTube, but you can play copyright stuff, so you can watch a full-on movie. We'd love to have you join us. And then for me, folks, for anyone who's watches the Adelson stuff I do, Saturday at 3, I'm having Katie Bogan shoots on. We're going to the divorce file. And then Sunday at 3, both Eastern, I'm having Jack from Truer Word, Never a Truer Word, coming back, and Julia Callie. And we're going to do a little assessment, a little analysis of Wendy Adelson's police interview. So we got that. And then me and Bob will be back on Monday covering this case. And then we just got to see if it's going to be Tuesday or Wednesday. But Karen Reed's coming, folks, and we're going to be covering that. And we'd love for you guys to join us. If you watched our stream last night, I found out later that we did have some people that were like being a little rowdy, but you might not even notice. I didn't, because our mods take care of that shit. So if you want a place to like not, that's our goal. You to have a place you can respectfully voice your opinions, but we're not going to have people like just spamming and being shitty. So
for sure. And Bell, 100%. I absolutely agree. Bell had said, Bob, unfortunately, the constitutional right of innocence and innocent until proven guilty does not exist in the public's mind. If you're arrested and put on the trial, the assumption is you must be guilty. Agreed. I mean, it's literally one of the first questions that we ask jurors, if just by the mere fact that this person was arrested, they must have done something wrong. Yeah, 100%. I mean, the way that it feels to us is that we're often having to prove that our client's innocent, which is not what the standard should be. And then Susan Skinner, yeah, that was a fascinating ruling. That was she's talking about during the Drew Peterson, the cop killer, Bolingbrook cop who killed his wife Susan Savio, and then his most recent wife, Stacy is still missing.
Present.
Still have not found
Thank
Stacy
you. Please be
Peterson's
seated.
body. And during that trial, they allowed hearsay evidence for the first, like they basically allowed testimony from a deceased person to come in through the wife's pastor and the divorce attorney. It was a crazy rule.
All right, we're back from the mid-morning break.
Let's
We're
see
gonna
who
go
the
ahead and
next
continue
witness
with
is.
evidence this morning on the state's case in chief. I believe there's another witness the state's prepared to call. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor. The state will call Doug Hart.
Doug.
Very well, you call your witness.
And by the way,
Doug Hart, come on down.
while he comes on down, Jerson things, this makes me and Bob so happy when people. Thank you so much for doing this. The dialogue is in the chat and a safe place for discourse intelligently, to discourse intelligently with some fun in it. That's what we're trying to do. So thank you so much for saying
everything for us. It's exactly what we're trying to do here.
Solemnly swear or affirm the testimony
another
you're about to
cop?
give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Looks like it. I don't know. What was his name? Doug Hart?
Yeah, I think so. I guess we'll find out. Let me change my ticker here.
You're sitting close enough and speak directly into the mic, please. Okay, you got fresh water and.
All right, Mr. Hart, do you go by agent or officer or some other title you prefer?
Fed.
Agent Hart is fine. It's former, but whatever works.
Are you related to
Well,
Brett
we'll just call you
Hitman?
Agent Hart then. Before we get started with your testimony, now that you've been placed under oath, I just want to ask you, because the proceedings are being live streamed and available for public access, have you reviewed or watched or observed any of the trial testimony in this case since it began?
No, I have not, Your Honor.
All right. And have you discussed with anyone else their testimony that has testified in the case?
No, I have not.
Okay. Thank you for that affirmation. Ms.
Jay,
Blake, you can inquire on
our
direct.
friend of the show.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Pause it real quick.
Yep.
Our friend of the show says that he is a former FBI agent that has all the dirt. And this is a quote. This is where Chad gets fucked.
Oh boy, folks.
So-
Buckle up, buttercups. Here we go.
He was the special agent in charge, the supervisor.
Nice.
Would you please spell your name for the record?
Douglas Hart, H-A-R-T.
Where are you currently employed?
I am currently the chief deputy at the Canyon County Sheriff's Office
How long have you been employed with them?
since September of 2022.
What did you do prior to taking that position?
Prior to that position, I was a special agent for the Federal Bureau of Investigation for approximately 27 years.
Did you hold various assignments or have specific roles you played within the special agent?
Yes, I did.
And what were some of those?
My first assignment was to the Honolulu, Hawaii field office, where I spent 5.5 years on the organized crime drug squad, conducting complex multi-subject investigations. My second assignment was to the Lewiston, Idaho resident agency, where I spent 7 years working primarily violent crime and persons crimes on the Nez Perce Indian Reservation. My third assignment was to be the supervisor of the Treasure Valley Metro Violent Crime Task Force, which is a local task force headed by the FBI to investigate gangs and violent crimes. And my final assignment, my last 7 years in the FBI, I was the supervisor for the southern 34 counties in Idaho for all criminal programs. And it was in that capacity that I became involved in this investigation.
And you just mentioned becoming involved in this investigation. Can you tell me a little bit about how the FBI ended up involved in this case?
Certainly. This case was brought to our attention in November, towards the end of November of 2019. And because it involved 2 missing children, that is something that the FBI has a specific expertise in. And it's something that we work very closely and cooperatively with our state and city and county partners in investigations involving missing children.
And when you became involved, or when the FBI became involved, is it fair to say that it became a joint investigation?
Yes.
Do you recall which agencies were involved?
Yes. We were initially contacted by the Rexburg Police Department and the Fremont County Sheriff's Department, or Sheriff's Office, excuse me. And then subsequently, for a brief period of time, the State of Idaho Attorney General's Office, and I think that's, and Social Security and a few other entities had smaller parts of the investigation that they worked on.
And as part of your involvement in this investigation, did you take on specific tasks?
I did.
What were some of those?
First and foremost, I was the FBI supervisor in this case, which meant that I was the reviewer and approver of most of the FBI work product that went into our case file. And then I also had an investigative role due to our minimal staffing in eastern Idaho and some transfers that had taken place, which further diminished our staffing. I carried several investigative assignments within this case.
Do you recall, as part of your assignments in this case, looking into some iCloud accounts?
Yes, I did.
Do you know who those iCloud accounts were associated with?
Yes, they were associated with Lori Vallow.
And do you recall the names on those accounts?
Yes, there were two accounts. The first account was called Lori 4 Style with the number 4. And the second account was called Lolly Time.
And when you looked at these iCloud accounts, could you tell how long they'd been in existence?
Yes.
And what did you learn regarding that?
So the first account, Lori for Style, was the oldest account. It was the bulk of that account started in 2016, but there were some materials that were present there as early as 2011, 2012. And then Lolly Time was more recent. It essentially started July 1st of 2019.
And when you were reviewing these, could you tell if some messages had been deleted? What exactly were you able to see in relation to any messages or the content there?
So the content on both iCloud accounts is extremely voluminous. We utilized a software system called Cellbrite, which doesn't change any of the data within the iCloud, but organizes it in a way that makes it reviewable. For instance, there will be a section for SMS or text messages, a section for videos and photographs and contacts and Bluetooth and on and on and on. And so this software just takes the mirrored image of the iCloud account and organizes it into its component parts. And so I reviewed all of those component parts for both of the iCloud accounts.
And you mentioned that both of these accounts had voluminous information on them.
Yes.
And in preparation for your testimony today, did you create a summary exhibit?
I did.
And does the summary exhibit contain some content from Lolly Time?
The summary exhibit for today is almost exclusively from Lolly Time, with the exception of one slide, which is from Lori for Style.
And do you believe that this would assist and aid you in your testimony today?
Yes, it would.
Do you believe it would aid the jurors in understanding the evidence?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, I have what's been marked as State's Exhibit 183. I have provided a copy to counsel. I have a copy for the court. as well as a courtesy copy for Your Honor. As some of the other exhibits for the state, this will actually be, the actual exhibit will be a jump drive containing the PowerPoint, but we have the slides printed off for courtesy.
Okay.
By the way, real quick while they do this, I forgot to also mention our wonderful mod, Missy Mayhem, who is also on Kick, goes on for like an hour before Steve. So I think 8 on Kick. If you're on Kick, make sure you're following Missy Mayhem.
And if I can have the witness shown a copy.
Yes.
She watches RuPaul's Drag Race, I believe,
Can you turn your microphone
was
on,
what
please,
she's
Mr.
watching
Pryor?
now. So guys,
With
make
a
sure
note.
you're checking her out on the Kick machine.
Judge, my only objection is I would like the officer, his agent, I'm sorry, officer, deputy, that's acceptable, to just make note of the range that this summary encompasses, if we could, date, ending date, beginning date.
Certainly, the begin.
Oh, our
This is
wonderful
part of the
friend,
admissibility here.
Reese from
Ms.
Criminalities in
Blake,
the
the
house.
witness is being handed
Steve?
that.
Hey, welcome.
It sounds like provisionally there's no objection, but if we could identify, and it'll be helpful for the record too, just the date that this encompasses. Date range.
Yes. Agent, are you able to tell us the date range that this would cover?
This exhibit covers a date range of January 2019 through, I believe it is August of 2019.
And is there a reason that that is what the time frame within this exhibit?
Yes, the pertinent portions of the iCloud for today's testimony exist within that specific time frame.
And through the investigation, did you learn when Chad and Lori first met?
Yes.
What did you learn in relation to that?
They met on October 26th, 2018.
And so this exhibit would begin several months after their first meeting?
Yes, it does. There are communications that reference the time frame of their meeting in 2018, but those communications are dated July of 2019.
And through the investigation, did you learn the last known day that Tylee Ryan was seen?
Yes.
And what was that day?
The last known date that Tylee Ryan was seen was September 8th of 2019.
Did you learn the last day JJ Vallow was seen?
Yes, the last day that JJ Vallow was seen was September 22nd of 2019.
And did you also learn the day that Tammy Daybell was declared dead?
Yes, Tammy Daybell was declared dead on October 19th of 2019.
And through the investigation, did you learn when Chad and Lori got married?
Yes, they were married in Hawaii on November 5th of 2019.
And when you became involved in the investigation initially, JJ and Tylee were still missing, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Your Honor, it's my understanding then the exhibit would be stipulated to?
All right, with those dates determined, Mr. Pryor, any objection?
Judge, it's not stipulated to, but there is no objection to the exhibit.
Okay, well then, without objection, State's Exhibit 183 is admitted. The court noting the actual exhibit will be the PowerPoint presentation file on a digital drive. The court has a courtesy copy as well as counsel, and the witness is referring to printed versions that are derived from that PowerPoint presentation.
And Your Honor, I guess just to ensure the record is clear as well, the iCloud accounts have been stipulated to that this content's pulled from.
Okay, and I will note that as well. Thank you.
And that is correct, Judge. These have been stipulated as part of the record.
Okay.
And Your Honor, with that, the state would ask permission to publish.
Yes, you may publish.
Agent Hart, when you created this exhibit, did you pull over the content from these iCloud accounts?
I did.
So do some of these contain potential spelling errors, things of that nature?
Yes. Most of what we'll see today are text messages. And so the Cellbrite software arranges them in a reverse chronological order and assigns each text message a line number. Associated with that is a date and a time for the text, and then who it was to or from, and then the actual content of the text. And so I cut and pasted the content of the text exactly as it appears in the iCloud account.
Thank you. And with that, would you go ahead and read these messages?
Is this where the storm's going to come in?
Yes. This sheet is from the SMS section of Lori for Style at iCloud.com. Line number 2585, January 23rd, 2019, 5:18 p.m. Text from Lori Vallow to Audrey Baratario. Hi, Audrey. This is Lori. I would love to talk to you sometime. Text me or call me. I'm excited to be able to talk to you about what we both know. Line number 2584.
Judge, could we approach?
Yes.
I just downloaded a sound effect for the storm because I feel like Chad's storm was more like this. A little
the drip.
So sorry about that, guys.
Oh, no need to apologize, Jay.
Oh, I forgot to do shots. Got to do shots.
And I forgot to do sidebar. Yeah.
I had some other I'm trying to think of my other sound effects that I downloaded. I did. Thank you, Miss. Oh, I got a wrong answer one. So like if someone's wrong answer, a little buzzer on there.
It's a loud one.
That I just made it low. That's what I download there. Like I have to make, what is this one? Oh, like if there's problems with the like got a little modem sound. What's this one? I think I already just.
Thank you for your patronage.
Oh, got a SpongeBob. That's Beetlejuice when they asked him to speak Spanish. I think that's it. I'm gonna have to look for some new ones. Thanks for being here, everybody. We appreciate it. We are now in the second half of the morning break. They usually go to 2 Eastern time. Then they take their lunch. Curious to see. I mean, this one is going to take the rest of the day, I would assume. But...
Oh yeah, this guy's going to be on for a while. There's like thousands of iCloud emails, text messages between many parties.
Yeah, let me explain shots. Thank you, Donna, for reminding, because I saw people asking. The first trial I streamed was Gwyneth Paltrow, and there were like 1 million sidebars. So we're like, well, we should do a shot every sidebar. And since then, I just play the shot sound whenever there's a sidebar.
All right, Ms. Blake, if you'd like to continue with direct, you may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Agent Hart, if you could go ahead and continue reading those into the record.
Yes. Line number 2584, January.
Judge, I'm going to object at this point on the basis that this is cumulative. There's a record that's already been established with the exhibit, and to just require the officer to read the remainder is cumulative in my opinion.
All right, response from the state.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state's position is it is not cumulative. While the state recognizes it is an exhibit, it's also a summary exhibit that we heard testimony from the agent that this would aid in his testimony today, that he believes it would aid the jurors in understanding. While it is what's on the screen, so long as it's read as to what's appearing on the screen, the state's position is in no way is this cumulative evidence. So we would ask that the judge overrule that objection and allow us to move forward with testimony.
And Judge, briefly in response is that the exhibit is what it is, and it's clear for the jury to look at that and read that. It doesn't necessitate the prosecutor to go line by line over a massive exhibit.
I am going to sustain the objection in that I would find it be somewhat, well, it is cumulative to have a written version of all of the messages and then to simply have a witness read through all of the written messages when they're already being published and the jurors are all capable of reading them as well. I'll sustain that, and that I just don't want to have the entire thing read into the record. I don't know that that's necessary, but if you want to have any time or assurance to make sure the jurors have read the messages and direct the witness to any of the specific messages that are contained in there, certainly you can go there, Ms. Blake, but just the wholesale reading of all the messages, I do find the objection is sustained.
Wow.
So no more reading, huh?
Agent Hart, when we look at these messages, looking at the first one there, appears to be a message from Lori sent to Audrey.
That's correct.
Can you tell us who, if you learned through the investigation, who Audrey Baratario is?
Audrey Baratario was a friend and associate of Chad Daybell.
And did you learn through the investigation how she came to be in contact with Lori?
Chad Daybell introduced her to Lori Vallow.
And when we look at that first message, is there something about that that initially caught your attention?
Yes, it's the line where Lori indicates to Audrey that she's excited to be able to talk about what we both know.
And then did you look at that in conjunction with the response from Audrey to Lori?
Yes, Audrey indicates that, or states that she guesses Lori has talked to Chad. And so it's clear from this particular text string that there's a reference by Lori Vallow to Audrey Baratario about what Lori, Audrey, and Chad Daybell know.
And Your Honor, may I ask that the witness be handed a laser pointer if we have one available?
Yes, I do think we have one.
Thank you. And Agent Hart, if at any point that's helpful.
Okay.
That. And then was there some significance to these other messages in relation to those first messages?
Yes, mainly in the fourth line where it says by Lori to Audrey that she thinks it's fun to talk to someone who knows what's really going on. Again, a reference to something between the three of them.
And again, this was in January of 2019. Correct. If we move to the next slide, I'm going to pause to give the jurors a chance to look through that.
Yes.
It's interesting. I think in the most trials that I've watched, I usually let them read it.
Hart, when we look at these messages, we have the name Melanie Boudreau. Did you learn through the investigation who she is?
Yes, she is Lori Vallow's niece.
And there's a reference in that first email to someone named Brandon. Do you know who Brandon is?
Yes, these are text messages, not emails, but Brandon is Melanie's husband or soon-to-be ex-husband. They were in the process of separating and getting a divorce.
And there's also the name Al. Do you know who Al would be referencing?
Only by the content of the text. I have never met or spoken with Allie Bloomer or her husband.
And what caught your attention about these particular messages?
What's up, Dave?
These messages and then the next two slides are a continuation of this text string, demonstrate several significant things that are relevant to this investigation.
Dana,
And
everybody in that courtroom
in
is
that,
LDS
in
aside from
the
Pryor.
very last message, it appears to be a message from Chad
Not
to
necessarily
Lori.
the jurors, but the judge.
Correct.
And
State.
what did that appear to be an indication Chad was going to do?
Pumpkinhead.
So during the investigation,
Objection, Judge. That was going to call for speculation.
Overruled.
during the investigation, we came to know that Chad Daybell purported to have the ability to assign an individual as being either dark or light, and he would give them a score. And Lori Vallow and others would seek Chad's visions as it related to assigning people as being either dark or light. And so this is one of the first references we see in the iCloud account where Lori Vallow is seeking from Chad Daybell, or Chad Daybell rather, offers that he will check Allie Bloomer and her husband, meaning he will see what their scores are.
And then looking at that first message, it references that Brandon is making me promise not to have you or Al around my house or kids. Do you know who that Al is?
Yes, that's Alex Cox, Lori's brother.
And then you had already indicated this next slide is a continuation. I'm just going to pause to give the jurors a chance to read through that.
Yeah, if every slide they're going to make the jurors, or this is going to be the rest of the day with this guy, depending if they go to the normal ed time. I guess we'll find out.
And when you looked at these messages, was there anything on these that stood out to you?
Yes, primarily in line 3000, where Chad Daybell responds back approximately 8 minutes later, giving Lori Vallow these scores. He assigns Allie Bloomer as being 4.1 dark, and her cop husband is a 3 dark. And so those are coming from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow in reference to this issue that's come up with Melanie Boudreau.
And if we look at the line 2996, is Lori passing that information along?
Yes, and this is a pattern that we see repeatedly, that Lori Vallow would solicit Chad Daybell's advice or visions. Chad Daybell would respond, and then Lori Vallow would disseminate that out to whoever was making that inquiry.
And if we move to the next slide, I believe you indicated this is also a continuation of that conversation.
Correct.
I'm just going to pause here to give the jurors a moment to look through that.
Yes.
Here. Bueller. 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 Bueller.
When we look at these messages, if we start with the new one, there's a reference to checking for recording devices. Did anything about that catch your attention?
Yes.
And then did it catch your attention in reference to the following messages?
It
or is
did.
it related?
It did. So subsequent to seeking those scores on Allie Bloomer and her husband, Lori Vallow then makes a request to Chad Daybell to clear Melanie Boudreau's house and also check it for recording devices. And so Chad Daybell responds that he'll do that and that he's having to break down some dark entries Brandon created and that he detects 3 listening devices. And that answer is then passed on directly from Lori Vallow to Melanie Boudreau, referencing Chad Daybell as Melanie Boudreau's father, and then verbatim passes on that message. So to me, this establishes once again.
Judge, I'm going to object. It's calling for speculation.
I'll overrule that. You can answer.
It establishes that the individuals within this group look to Chad Daybell as the supposed visionary who will give them these types of information.
And in these messages, when the request is made, Chad responds. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm turning to the next slide. I'm again going to pause to allow the jurors a moment to look through that.
Very well.
Great point by Yurts and things. Don't forget Patreon. Yes, Bob and I both have Patreon. Try to post like graphics, do exclusive streams and stuff like that. Thank you, Yurts and things. Great point.
Yeah, and for our Patreon, our patrons get
Agent
early
Hart, when
access
we look
to
at the
our
date on this message,
podcast
can
early
you
release
read the
and
date?
no ads.
So let me throw your link tree up here, Bob. Bob, a couple of folks asked, do we have someone in there today in the courtroom?
I don't think Lori's there. I don't know that our friend of the show was in there either.
Okay.
I'll ask though.
All right, cool.
I can, July 13th of 2019.
Do you know when Charles Vallow was killed?
He was killed on July 11th of 2019.
So just 2 days prior to this message.
Correct.
During this time, was Tammy Daybell still alive?
Yes.
Do you know who Adam, Leah, well, I'll stop there. Do you know who Adam is?
Yes.
And who is that?
Chad Daybell's son-in-law.
And do you know who Leah is?
Chad Daybell's daughter.
And do you know who Joe is?
Joe is also Chad Daybell's son-in-law.
What is it, outside of the date, what else about this message drew your attention?
Shelly Tarbert gifting out 5 memberships. Thank you so much, Shelly. You're awesome.
Thank you very much.
And Shelly's given us a lot of insight on the religion in this case.
Yeah,
So,
Shelly's great.
Thank you so much, Shelly.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Shelly.
There were a couple of things that I think are significant in this message. The first is this line where Chad Daybell says, "I feel she will be gone by then," which is a reference to the pending death of Tammy Daybell.
Judge, objection. That calls for speculation.
I'll strike that last part of the answers. Insufficient foundation.
And a member for 5 months. Thank you so much.
Based on your investigation, who did you believe the she to be?
Tammy Daybell.
It calls for speculation. I'll renew my objection, Judge.
And Your Honor, I think based on his investigation, I'm asking who he believed this message to be referencing.
Judge, could we approach, please?
No, it's overruled, Ms. Frey. Go ahead, Ms. Blake.
Who did you believe the her to be?
Tammy Daybell.
Or I said her, but the word is actually she, the pronoun used, correct?
Correct.
Looking at the second to the last sentence, could you explain if there was anything about that that drew your attention?
Yes, it helps tie in the line, "I feel
Many-
she will be
many
gone by
times,
then."
Dana.
So Chad
Many,
Daybell
many.
tells Lori Vallow that the Lord has hinted to him that he might not get to be with Lori Vallow until after this graduation ceremony takes place on July 23rd, and asks Lori Vallow to, quote, "please ask about that."
Thank you so much, Brooklyn Janet, for the $10 super chat. Thank you so much.
$10 holla.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
If we
very
turn
much.
to the
I
next
like that one.
slide,
I'm glad I got
again, I'm going to
Thank you very
pause
much.
to allow the jurors to read that.
Latka, man.
While they're reading it, I just saw that there was an interesting new filing. This almost reminds me of Delphi with all these new filings and Karen Reed. Defense filing motion to enforce
Agent Hart, looking
it's real quick.
at
Motion to enforce constitutional confrontation rights. Defense claims court layout gives obstructed view by jurors to the witness box. My source in the courtroom says this issue was raised at sidebar. Never seen this before. So a lot of stuff
the
going on.
date on this one, how many days ago had Charles been killed?
3 days prior.
And again, Tammy Daybell's still alive?
Yes.
Do you know, or did you learn through the investigation who Lily would be referencing?
Yes. Lily is another name for Lori Vallow.
Was there something about this that caught your attention?
There are two things about this communication that caught my attention.
Man, I wish we could read.
Could you tell me what those were?
I know.
The first is the reference to joining Chad Daybell in the shower. They were physically.
Oh boy.
Lori Vallow was in Arizona. Chad Daybell was in Idaho at the time of this message. So there are repeated references to Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell having the ability to
portal shower
connect on a spiritual plane and be together spiritually. So this is just one example of that, but it's pertinent because it happens repeatedly and it could be easily confused that they were actually physically present together, which they were not. So that was the first thing that stood out.
And what was the next thing?
The next thing is the last line of Chad Daybell's text to Lori Vallow, where he says he loves her so immensely that the whole universe knows it, and very soon the people on this little blue globe will know it too.
Such a wordsmith. What a wordsmith. God,
demonstrates that their relationship was clandestine or secret at this point, and that at some future date, the relationship between Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow would be divulged by Chad Daybell.
And then moving to the next slide, again, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors time to read that.
By the way, we all think it's hilarious, which it is, but like when Chad's texting this shit, he is thinking he is smooth, man. He is like the whole blue globe is gonna know about us, and he's like, man, I am smooth. I am dropping it.
Did you just see what I wrote? I called the Earth a globe. It was the word.
Agent Hart, when we look at these messages, there is the name James and the name Elena referenced. Did you see those in this message?
Yes.
Other Chad clips.
Were you able to determine through the investigation who James is referencing?
Yes, James is Chad Daybell.
And were you able to determine who Elena is referencing?
Yes, Elena is Lori Vallow.
And again, the date on these messages is how many days after Charles Vallow was killed?
Oh, that's great news, Joanne.
This is now 3 days after he was killed.
Welcome. We're so happy you're here.
What is it about these particular messages that drew your attention?
Well, the James and Elena communications are very significant, and we see them first in the email section of the iCloud, starting on July 8th, continuing through July 9th, and through much of July. Chad Daybell is the author of these portions of a narrative or a history that chronicles Chad Daybell's meeting Lori Vallow and how their relationship developed. He refers to himself as James in this and to Lori Vallow as Elena, But in fact, this is autobiographical. It is based in fact. We verified the facts of the story as being correct and accurate to real events. And so in this, we have a description from Chad Daybell as to how he met Lori, and particularly several important events that occurred early on in their relationship.
And in this first one, there's an indication now on with the story. Were there other segments that came before this next message?
Yes, and it's very voluminous. And so what we're seeing here were portions that were sent via text message by Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. But as I said, on July 8th is the first instance we see of a very lengthy narrative written by Chad Daybell, sent to Lori Vallow via email.
And again, during this time, Tammy Daybell is still alive?
She is.
Oh.
In that second message, there's the indication they would both attend the same event in mid-November. Were you able to determine through the investigation if that occurred?
Yes, so that's a reference to November 15th through the 17th of 2018. So while this message was sent via text on July 14th of 2019, the narrative contained in the message is talking about a time period between the end of October and prior to November 15th through the 17th of 2018.
And the last sentence of that text, was there something that stood out there?
I think the entire text is pertinent, as well as that last sentence. In the middle, Chad Daybell states in this narrative that he and Lori Vallow had been married before, and references some past time with the Savior when he lived in Jerusalem. And Elena, or Lori, had been his beloved spouse and best friend. In the final line, he says that relationship was now meant to continue in this lifetime. So looking at this history, Chad is saying that after he met Lori Vallow, he knew that their relationship was now meant to continue in this lifetime, with the assertion that they had been married in a previous lifetime.
And again, you talked about, while this message is sent in July of 2019, that it's referencing events from 2018.
Brooklyn Janet.
That's correct. Chad Daybell met Lori Vallow on October 26th of 2018 at a Preparing a People conference in St. George, Utah. That's chronicled in this history. In between their first meeting, there was a 3-week time period before they would physically meet again in Mesa, Arizona, November 15th through the 17th, 2018, at another Preparing a People conference. So the time period being referenced by Chad Daybell in this communication is that time period from the end of October 2018 until they meet again physically in November of 2018.
And when this is
real quick, just got a $10 cash app from KTG, an always giver, that says thanks for all the hard work. Thank you, KTG.
is amazing.
She's awesome. She's always giving out memberships, sending cash apps. Thank you so much, Kate.
written, Charles and Tammy are still alive.
That is correct.
We go to the next one, and again, I'm going to pause here to let the jurors read it.
If you guys missed it, I have.
All right, so Jay, pause it for 1 second. So our friend of the show is going to be sending. She's got all of these messages. So I'm going to read what's currently on the screen. They would both attend the same event in mid-November, and it seemed like that day would never arrive. Each day they opened their hearts to each other a little more. James knew he could trust her with the mysteries of the universe that had been revealed to him. He knew they had been married before, and they had been close friends with the Savior when he lived in Jerusalem. James had served in an important position in the Lord's church, and Elena had been his beloved spouse and best friend. That relationship was now meant to continue in this lifetime. So that's what that says, or at least that's what the last one says. I can't see.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So as they get posted, she'll send me what they're saying, and I'll read aloud.
Just got a $5 from Dana D'Angelo. A chud is a potato. Thank you so much, Dana. And if you missed it, I got a couple new sound effects for Chudley. We got this one.
Well, that's a huge noggin. It's a virtual planetoid. Has its own weather system.
It's like an orange on a toothpick.
And then I got this one.
He'll be crying himself to sleep tonight on his huge pillow.
That poor kid did have a huge head. Not nearly as big as Chad's, though.
No.
And his is mostly hair. You know,
That's
he had
true.
what we affectionately refer to as a
Correct.
Jew throw.
This
He
message
did. He had a
again
big
has
throw.
the date of
Yeah.
July 14th of 2019, correct?
Yes, it does.
And could you talk a little bit about what it is about this message that caught your attention?
What caught my attention is that this is the first time Chad Daybell introduces to Lori Vallow the concept that they had lived as human beings at another time in the past, that they had been married to each other in the past, and that they were meant to be married again in this present time and complete these important missions together.
Ooh,
Judge, I'm going to object at this point, and I voir dire a native objection.
Oh, well, there's no pending question at this time. So if there was an objection, Mr. Pryor, it just wasn't timely.
And again, Agent Hart, when we're seeing the James and Elena references and this story being drafted, it is referencing back to events that would have happened previously.
Yes, he is referencing events and phone conversations that took place between the end of October 2018 and just prior to November 15th through the 17th of 2018.
And again, when we're looking at this, Charles has been killed just 3 days before this message.
That's correct.
And in 2018, when this story's referencing back to 2018, Charles and Tammy were still alive.
Yes, Charles and Tammy were still alive. Lori Vallow was married to Charles Vallow, and Chad Daybell was married to Tammy Daybell during this time period that he's describing.
Judge, I'm going to object on response, or actually, Judge, I'll withdraw at this point.
All right.
Well, make up
Go
your
ahead, Ms.
fucking
Blake.
mind, dude.
There's also a reference
Tell him,
in
Jay.
there, the line starting with, "He was ecstatic." Could you read that sentence in there?
Can you read it
He was
in
ecstatic
Chud's
that
voice, though,
she was
please?
receiving confirmation of these things as well.
Did that indicate anything to you?
Yes, in the first sentence, Chad writes that he tried to delicately describe their connection with one another and was in fact delighted when Lori Vallow believed him. And so this is Chad Daybell introducing these concepts of he and Lori having been married in a previous life.
And then later on, we see that she appeared to be getting confirmation of what Chad was telling her.
Correct.
There's also reference in there to physical desires.
Yes.
With the talk of physical desires, making love, was there anything about those that caught your attention?
Oh boy.
Well, it
makes me laugh every time.
Demonstrated the attraction of Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow instantly upon their meeting in October of 2018.
If we move to the next slide, and again, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read this.
While she paused, I just found out this program, which I've been adding sound effects to that I download, has some of their own default ones. So let's see if this rain one is good for Chudley. The fucking storm.
The storm. I like the drip better.
Yeah, this one. Let's see what this one is. Rain, that's lame. What the hell is that? Let's
Not
see.
a keeper.
Oh, these are like beats.
When we look at these messages, they are also dated July 14th of 2019. Is that correct?
Yes.
Let's see this one. Smooth rain.
What was it about these messages that caught your attention?
This is a communication by Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow seeking an opportunity to be with her in person and using a camp out and a potential speaking assignment as a ruse to be able to leave Rexburg and go and be with Lori Vallow.
And there's a reference there in the first message, whether she is still here or not. Based on your investigation, did you determine who that she would have been referencing?
Tammy Daybell.
Jail guards refer to Chud as slug. It's appropriate. It's appropriate.
And in the James and Elena, we saw some reference to some kind of physical attraction. And then in these, what stood out is Chad and Lori are actually going to meet up in person here.
Yes, the investigation had revealed they had already met at several different times with travel to different places to be together for periods of 2 or 3 days. And in fact, we were able to verify that Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow did meet and were together during that July 24th through 26th timeframe that's referenced in the communication.
And July 24th to 26th, Tammy Daybell was still alive. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then if we go to the next slide, and again, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read this.
Friday. Penny says hi, means Amazon person's here, I think. I'll be right back.
And
Amazon
again, these are a continuation of text messages from July 14th of 2019.
Correct.
And again, just 3 days after Charles Vallow's been killed.
Yes.
What about these messages drew your attention?
There was a lot of what we call sexting content in the iCloud that I examined.
Sexting.
I included these communications as just a very, very small example that this was in fact a sexual affair. It was not an emotional affair or a spiritual affair. It's very clear that it's a physical sexual affair between Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow.
And moving to the next slide, again, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read this. And if we look at these, can you indicate the date on these messages for the record?
July 15th of 2019.
So these are moving to the next day from the previous messages.
Correct.
What is it about these particular messages that caught your attention?
This is an example of how Lori Vallow sought to manipulate Chad Daybell in the immediate aftermath of Charles Vallow's death.
And in that text from Chad to Lori, could you read the last line?
He says, "You are my wonderful best friend that I can't live without."
And again, during this time, Tammy Daybell is still alive.
Correct.
And the manipulation that you're indicating is Lori's response there. Could you read the first line?
Yes, she replies, "And yet you are so sad, missing you."
Referencing back to his message to her that he couldn't live without her.
Correct. Chad Daybell tells Lori Vallow how much he loves her and he can't live without her. And her response to that is, "And yet you are, in fact, living without me. So sad."
Did I miss the storm text?
No, you did not.
And moving to the next slide, again, I will pause to allow the jurors to read.
That Amazon was Donna Barkley. I don't know if she's here in the chat, but she got my friends a Chunola off the wish list. So thank you so much, Donna. They're very happy about that.
Aw.
These messages for the record. And could you indicate the date on these messages for the record?
July 18th of 2019.
What about these messages stood out to you?
Well, this is a series of texts that occupies this slide and the next 3 slides, all regarding the same subject, and that is Lori Vallow has just found out that she is not the beneficiary to Charles Vallow's $1 million life insurance policy.
And she's telling Chad that.
It's a bummer.
Correct.
What are we going to do without the money? Hey,
Going to the next slide, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read. Of the previous, and you indicated this is a continuation of the previous slide, correct?
Correct, as well as the next 2 slides.
In looking at this particular slide, there's a reference to bringing down the Gaddy Antons, especially Brandon.
Yes.
Through the investigation, did you determine who that Brandon would be that is being referenced?
That is Brandon Boudreau, Melanie Boudreau's soon-to-be ex-husband.
Through your investigation, did you learn anything in relation to Brandon and an investigation involving him?
Yes.
What did you learn?
What could you clarify? What did we learn about?
Yes, sorry. Did you learn anything about an incident being investigated by the Gilbert Police Department involving Brandon as a victim?
Yes.
And what did you learn regarding that?
On November 2nd of 2019, as Brandon Boudreau was pulling in his driveway of his home in Arizona, an individual shot at him with a rifle, narrowly missing him.
And you said November 2nd. Is it possible it was October 2nd?
I'm sorry, you are correct. It is October 2nd. Excuse me.
And that was October 2nd of 2019?
Correct.
Do you know, did the reference bringing down the Gadiantons mean anything, or did you learn what that was referencing?
I learned that that is a reference, the name Gadianton has to do with a group of people that's referenced in a book of scripture called the Book of Mormon. The Gadiantons were robbers and thieves, and so the word Gadianton is indicative of someone who is a thief or a robber or a bad individual.
And as Lori's telling Chad that she's no longer the beneficiary, can you read the last text into the record?
Yes, that's a text from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. It says, it will be interesting if it got changed after he had 2 bullets in his chest.
Ooh.
Wow.
And going to the next slide, again, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read. Also a continuation. And Agent Hart, I think you indicated this is also a continuation from the previous 2 slides. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Were there some additional references on this particular slide that stood out to you, or particular statements?
Yes, primarily the last line.
And what was it about that that stood out to you?
That's a text from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. And so she had found out that the beneficiary for the life insurance policy had been changed in March of 2019. And then she says, so it was probably Ned before we got rid of him. Ned is the name of the supposed dark entity that Chad Daybell had assigned to Charles Vallow.
Fucking Ned, change that life insurance, Ned.
And then there's a reference there before we
Idly ho,
got rid of him,
neighborinos.
correct?
Correct.
Did you learn what the $4,000 a month from SS was in reference to through the investigation?
Yes, that's a reference to money that would still be coming to Lori Vallow through Social Security for her children, primarily for JJ.
And then if we move to the next slide, again, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read.
Very well.
So let's say.
What?
What were you showing us? Water?
Oh yeah, let me pause. I can't really see. Deja got me a sent me and Shannon custom. I'm so bad at showing it to the camera. J Bonation, if you could see it, J Bonation.
Oh yeah.
Glasses. So thanks again, Deja.
That's cool.
when we look at this slide, can you read the date on these messages into the record?
Yes, these 5 messages are all from July 21st of 2019.
We've talked about who Ned is. Through the investigation, did you learn who Rhonda is that's being referenced?
Yes, Rhonda is the name assigned to the dark spirit or dark entity that Chad Daybell assigned to Kay Woodcock.
Judge, I'm going to object on foundation.
Sustained.
Agent Hart, as part of your investigation.
Oh, I love when the super chat does this. Bob, Dana just got you. She got me a $5. Now she got you a new $5, and I love when it reads the emoji. Hippo character's head pops out of water, surrounded by his hippo squad.
That is amazing. The description is amazing, and what's more amazing is that $5 holla. Thank you so much, Dana.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Did you review other?
Oh, and Kelly Bowbelly gifted out a membership. Thank you so much, Kelly Bowbelly. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much.
Other documents?
Many, yes.
Did you review other reports?
Yes.
Did you discuss this matter with other investigators?
Yes.
And based on your review in this case, did you determine who Rhonda was referencing?
Yes.
And who?
And I'm going to renew my objection, Judge. You can talk about all the reports you want, but unless they get into specifics, telling me how he came to that conclusion, which documents, when, where, and time,
Joe's in the
it's
house.
still not sufficient
Joe?
foundation.
For purposes of this direct, I do find there's sufficient foundation. I'll overrule the objection. You can cross on that, of course, Mr. Pryor, when it's your chance for cross-examination.
Who did you determine Rhonda to be referencing?
Kay Woodcock, who is Charles Vallow's sister.
Now, there's references in some of these messages as well to working on someone. Through your review of the iCloud and messages, did you determine anything in relation to those working on, or did that stand out to you?
Yes, this is a phrase that we see repeatedly in the iCloud, and it actually has a dual meaning. When they're referencing somebody who Chad Daybell has determined to have a dark spirit or a dark entity working on them has a negative connotation. When it's someone who's determined to be light or good, then working on them is an uplifting or a building connotation.
Agent Hart, as we've reviewed some of these messages that were around or shortly after Charles' death, we're seeing some of them. In your review of the messages, did you ever see any signs of grief or sorrow from Lori Vallow?
No.
Did you ever see any signs of grief or sorrow from Chad Daybell?
None.
If we go to the next slide again, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read.
Of 2009.
The date of this message into the record.
July 21st of 2019.
And we've talked about James and Elena before, and this story, again, it references a prior period of time than when the message was being sent. Is that correct?
Yes. So at this point in this narrative, the dates are, this would be November 15th of 2018.
And we saw a previous slide dealing with that same time frame. Is that correct?
The previous slides were actually talking about that period of time between the end of October and prior to November 15th of 2018. This particular story talks about when Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow are now physically together in Mesa, Arizona on November 15th of 2018.
And through the investigation, did you learn if Chad Daybell was in fact in Arizona in November of 2018?
Yes, we verified that he was present on that specific date. We verified that he spoke at a Preparing a People conference there during those dates of the 15th through the 17th of November 2018, and verified that he was physically present at other locations as well.
And outside of the continuation of the James and Elena, were there specific things in this message that drew your attention?
Yes.
What were those?
Primarily that there was a plan that had been revealed or communicated to Chad that wasn't entirely clear to him yet, but it included them, meaning Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow, being together at the present time.
So specifically, the plan was being revealed to Chad.
Correct.
And there's a reference of Chad and Lori having a mission together?
Yes.
Thanks so much, Dom's mom. You're awesome.
Thank you very much.
And moving to the next slide, I'm again going to pause to allow the jurors to read.
Man, right before lunch, not only are they making the jurors do work by reading, but they're also grossing them out right before their lunch.
Is that correct? Hart, these messages were also sent on July 21st of 2019. Is that correct?
Yes.
In looking at these particular messages, was there anything that stood out to you?
Yes, they're very insightful in that Chad, in his own words, is explaining the feelings he had for Lori Vallow within 3 weeks of meeting her, that they had progressed through this relationship. They had finally found their best friend that they could trust and confide in.
And again, the period of time this message is referencing, both Lori and Chad were married to other people?
Correct.
And Lori Vallow responded to this message. Can you read her response?
She loves it.
And there's the reference in there to the 3 weeks. And would this have been, was the meeting in November about 3 weeks after Chad and Lori met in real life?
Yes, that's verified.
Moving to the next message, again, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read.
About 20 minutes before they'll likely take lunch here, folks. And then I will see what they talk about scheduling.
And would you read the date of this message into the record?
This is also July 21st of 2019.
And this is a continuation of the James and Elena story being written?
Yes.
Are you aware of which time period this message is referencing?
This is referencing a specific date of November 16th, 2019, or excuse me, 2018.
And was there something about this particular part of the story that drew your attention?
There were multiple things that drew my attention to this that I believe are pertinent to the investigation.
Can we go through those one by one?
Sure.
What is the first one that drew your attention?
So the first is that Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow went to an LDS temple that has been verified. They attended the temple in Gilbert, Arizona on November 16th of 2018 together. And that they then participated in a ceremony that is a proxy ceremony for marrying people who have already been deceased.
And again, that was verified that they were at that temple together.
Yes.
And they reference the proceeding. After that, there's an indication in here, if you can read from the James and Elena knew.
James and Elena knew that they were now sealed as husband and wife for eternity.
Did that line stick out to you?
Yes, this is Chad Daybell's writing stating that when he and Lori participated in this proxy ceremony, that somehow through that, they had become once again married for eternity.
And then if we go to the last sentence starting with they knew, would you read that into the record?
Yes. They knew they had just begun a new journey together that was eternal and never ending.
Was there something about that particular line that caught your attention?
Yes, this is the beginning of their relationship and continuation of that relationship in the coming months that encapsulate the time period of this investigation and the crimes that are alleged.
And if we go to the next slide, again, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read.
So Jay, the friend of the show sent me the entire, so his little James and Elena story was sent in a series of emails. She sent me the entire story. I mean, if people really want to throw up in their mouths,
it's almost lunch, Bob. Let's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot.
And these messages were also exchanged on July 21st of 2019. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
And in looking at these messages, were there things that caught your attention?
Yes, two things primarily.
And can you walk us through those?
Yes. The first is that Lori Vallow responds to those prior clips that Chad wrote about James and Elena saying, "It's making me so happy to read about our life," which is a verification that this is an autobiographical or factual account.
And then what is the next thing?
The next is the line from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell, which says, "I love you more than ever. I can't wait to be with you forever. I'm begging father and mother. That's my job tonight." To which Chad Daybell responds, "I will be right beside you, begging just as much. I need you desperately."
And what, if anything, did that indicate to you about Chad and Lori's relationship?
That they had a clear plan to be with each other, to be together forever, and that they were both begging God for that to happen.
And again, when these messages are being exchanged, is Tammy Daybell still alive?
She is.
In your review of these iCloud accounts, was there ever any indication of Chad planning on getting a divorce?
None.
Ever any indication of Chad planning on getting separated?
No.
Moving to the next slide, and again, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read.
All right, let's see. I think I found some more drip sound effects. See if these are any good.
That one may even be better. It's even a weaker drip.
This one is a cave water droplet.
It's not bad. It
Yeah,
really, like, all the drips just remind me of an STD. You know, it sounds like, the drip. Oh, that was dropping the kids off at the pool there. Man.
Oh, another. I don't
And could you please read the
Robot
date
drip.
of these messages into the record?
July 22nd of 2019.
Tony, member for 5 months. Tony, you're the best. Thank you so much, Tony.
You
OG,
just talked about
OG.
the
OG for real.
previous slide indicating a plan to be together.
Correct.
What is it about these particular messages that stood out to you?
Again, there are a couple of different things that stood out as relevant. The first is the text from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow referencing going to see a movie with Garth, who is his son. He then says, missing you desperately, but so excited to be with you. If you'll recall from a prior slide, there's a plan July 24th through the 26th for Chad and Lori to be meeting in person. And so the first line is a reference to their in-person meeting that's coming up.
And then looking at Lori's response, is there something in there that drew your attention?
Very much. She said, I love you. You will enjoy the scenery. Looks like Kauai a lot. And then responds with another text saying, hopefully we will be there someday soon together.
So there's a reference to Kauai.
Yes.
Do you know where Kauai is located?
Yes, it's in Hawaii, the Hawaiian Islands.
What's Chad's response to that?
Chad's response is significant. He says,
the word on the street is they're going to be testifying. We're talking about Chud's kids. I doubt very highly that they're in the courtroom in light of the fact that they are testifying. But the word on the street is that they're on the witness list.
Yeah, I think that he mentioned it in his opening, if I remember correctly, prior.
that is the plan, exclamation point, and my greatest desire.
And then we talked about Kauai being in Hawaii. Looking at Chad's final sentence there of the last message, could you read that into the record?
Yes. I look forward to being on a tropical island with you.
I asked you earlier if you knew when Chad and Lori got married. Do you recall when that was?
November 5th of 2019.
Do you know where they got married?
I do.
Where was that?
Kauai.
Do you know where Chad and Lori relocated eventually after getting married?
Kauai.
During the time those messages are being exchanged, was JJ Vallow still alive?
He was.
Was Tylee Ryan still alive?
She was.
Was Tammy Daybell still alive?
Yes, she was.
Moving to the next slide. Again, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read.
Shelley confirms Pryor said all of Chad's kids will
And
testify.
Agent Hart, can you read the
dad.
date these messages were sent into the record?
July 26th of 2019.
Looking at these messages, did certain parts of them catch your attention?
Very much so, yes.
And what is it about them that caught your attention, if you can walk us through that?
Well, the time frame is important. So these messages were sent as Chad Daybell was returning home from having spent 2 or 3 days from the 24th through the 26th with Lori Vallow. So He references that he's just gotten home, back to his home in Rexburg, and that he had a splendid time with her. And then he follows up with a narrative or sentiment that he believes or feels that he's a grown-up version of Harry Potter,
Oh my.
who has to live with the Dudleys in a little space under the stairs. And then every few weeks he gets to escape and have amazing adventures with his goddess lover. The part that to me is most significant is the final sentiment where he says, then I have to return to my place under the stairs, feeling trapped. But I sense permanent freedom is coming, exclamation point.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yeah, that doesn't look good for you, Chad. And first of all, we all know with your big ass head, you wouldn't fit under any stairs.
Yeah. Pumpkin
Well,
head.
that's a huge noggin. It's a virtual planetoid.
And it-
Has its own weather system.
You indicated he
It's like an
just
orange
returned
on a
from the weekend, or
toothpick.
from the time with Lori, correct?
Yes, these messages
that
were
part off
sent
that?
upon his return
I gotta
back to
cut
his
it
home in
like pieces.
Rexburg.
So he's referencing being back home with his family. He feels trapped.
Correct.
Boy, Judge is letting him go past
Looking at the
145.
next slide, and again, I'm going to pause
Did
to
you
allow
say
the jurors to
145?
read.
Well, typically they take lunch around, well, I guess between 11:45 and noon.
And Agent Hart, if you can read the date these messages were sent into the record.
July 28th of 2019.
What about these messages stood out to you?
There's a couple of things. This is in reference, just for context, to a trip that Lori Vallow was planning to take with Melanie Boudreau and Alex Cox to Southern California.
And in these, we see a message from Chad to Lori about no privacy here to hardly text. Do you happen to know where Chad would have been located at that time?
Judge, objection, foundation.
Sustain.
With these messages, was there any, through your investigation, was there any indication that Chad Daybell was going on a trip?
No.
The indication was Lori Vallow was going on a trip.
Correct.
So based on your investigation, Chad wasn't leaving his home.
Correct.
Judge, objection. This is leading.
Well, it was, but it's already been asked and answered.
Then we see, looking at that third message on there, the text from Lori to Chad, is there something about that that drew your attention?
Yes, this is approximately 2 weeks after Lori Vallow's husband, Charles Vallow, has been killed. She is now free from her marriage. Chad Daybell is not free from his marriage. And she says, I need a distraction while I'm waiting for you. And he replies, absolutely, I think you'll have a fun time.
And turning to the next slide, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to look at these.
The hell are those?
I don't know. They look like forms of some kind.
And
Counsel, could I have a quick sidebar?
Now we're gonna do some scheduling.
Sidebar. While they're doing that, I want to read a lovely passage.
Oh God.
Yeah, everyone prepare yourselves. It's quite touching. It's quite touching. It's some of the beautiful prose drafted by Chud Daybell. All right, so I'm just going to read this this one delightful passage that is, it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. Okay, wait, I lost it. There's such a, okay, here. I'm going to read it in Chud's voice. The passionate magic that they had felt many centuries earlier came surging back powerfully. James moved to the couch, and Elena straddled him effortlessly, as if they had done this thousands of times before. She fit perfectly on him.
Oh, gross.
And they pressed their loins tightly against each other. The feeling was exquisite, and they both smiled and moaned at the sensations passing between them. They were still fully clothed, but the intensity of the intimacy was undeniable. That's just a little taste of this
gross,
this Bible porn that Chud was pounding out here. Speaking of pounding out, I imagine Chad was quite busy.
All right, thank you, counsel. That last exhibit, I'll ask if the state would redact certain information off of that, and I'll permit time to do that. In addition, the court had previously discussed with counsel our scheduling for today, given that it's Friday and we've been through a long week. I'm going to suggest we break for the day. We have advised the jurors previously we might be stopping early today.
Yes.
Ms. Blake, is this a good time for us to break until Monday?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Any objections from the defense?
No objection, Judge. Thank you.
That's great.
All right, that will conclude evidence for this week. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, at this time, I do want to again admonish you, especially over this long weekend. Please do not discuss the evidence you've heard here with anyone else, including amongst yourselves. You can only do that after deliberations begin. Please don't follow the case or investigate the case in any way so that you can remain objective and decide this case only on the facts and evidence you've seen here in court. With that admonishment then, thank you so much for your attentiveness this week. We will commence again 8:30 Monday with additional evidence in the state's case in chief. With that in mind, then we'll go ahead and conclude for the week.
All right.
Just gotta make sure there's nothing when they let I don't think they're gonna do anything, but
the Spitfire Dragon we will definitely be covering this Monday. Nice Friday gift. Nice Friday gift. Got an update from Dizzy on Gardner.
All right, thank you, everyone. We'll be in
That
recess.
hearing was supposed to start at 9 a.m. Got a very late start, and so it's just getting rolling now. Judge indicated that it was the court's issue that caused the late start. So, and it appears that Gardner will not be calling any witnesses.
All right.
Remember, this apparently is a motion to disqualify the state's attorney's office.
Yeah, and again, if you're not familiar with the Gardner case, much like the Ailsons, a very contentious divorce leads to the ex-wife and her new husband hiring a hitman. I mean, it's just awful. Killing her ex-husband while her daughter's in the car. I mean, it's awful.
Very,
awful.
very Adelson-esque.
Yeah, very much so. There were issues with religion. One family is loaded. I mean, it's so similar.
Yep.
But anyway, I just want to, me and Bob want to thank you guys. This has been a long week. We know we appreciate you coming, like watching our, Karen Reed primer, all our mods, of course. Again tonight at 8, Missy Mayhem going live on Kick. Then I'm going 9 with Publicly Buzz. We got to get them to 10K, guys. 10K.
Let's do it. Do it.
And then again, Saturday and Sunday, I have 3 p.m. Eastern shows. You don't have anything this weekend, right, Bob?
I am off duty this weekend. I I mostly, considering that I now can run to the basement and finish recording Garcia, I might be making that drive to Indy tonight for that thing. So, and the only thing I'm doing is I'm discussing on Bob Ruff's Patreon the kind of stunning decision in the West Memphis 3 case where the Supreme Court of Arkansas has allowed them to test the DNA evidence that they've been trying to get done for a couple of years. So other than that, you won't be seeing me till Monday, y'all.
Yeah, they are done, folks. They're done for the day. So, and we'll be back on Monday again. We'll be back on Monday covering this case, and then we'll see what goes on with Reed, potentially starting Tuesday and Wednesday. Then we'll go over that. And then again, Tuesday, Shannon will be back. Shannon and Allie giving you guys the updates on this case at night. And I think that's it. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, mods. Thank you all so much for your support. Have a good weekend if we don't see you in the later shows, and we'll see you on Monday.
Yeah, we love you guys. Thank you a million times over for hanging with us every day. And just know, without you guys, we'd just be a couple of old men talking about old and new cases.
Absolutely. Goodbye.